Madam Clerk.
Councilor Cook?
Here.
Councilor Janick?
Present.
Councilor Edwards?
Here.
Councilor DiMederos?
Here.
Councilor Burke?
Here.
Councilors Perry and Councilor Vieira are absent.
Consent agenda. Approval of Town Council minutes, May 9th, 2022. Regular meeting. Councilor Cook, Perry, and Vieira abstain, absent. May 9th, 2022. Executive session. Councilor Cook, Perry, Vieira abstain, absent. Acknowledge receipts of minutes from boards, commissions, and committees. Order canvases 1, Solar Ordinance Advisory Committee 2, Historical Cemetery Commission 2, Recreation and Beach Commission 1, Parade Commission 1. Acknowledge receipts of reports, Town Administrator, Department Monthly Reports, April 2022, Town Administrator, Police and Fire Department Overtime Reports, April 2022, Treasurer Charette, April 2022, Budget and Revenue Reports, 2021 Annual Reports from the Bacassett Hill Cemetery Commission, Historical Cemetery Commission, and Economic Development Commission. Acknowledgement, receipt of correspondence, Stu Gilfillen, Recreation Commission letter regarding Tiverton local pickleball tournament on Sunday, July 17th, 2022, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Rain date Sunday, July 24th, 2022. I imagine the pickleball is going to be done by then.
We're actually using the prior courts for that one, right?
Okay. Department of Environmental Management, Freshwater Wetlands Program Notice of Application of Paula Faria, 295 Cherry Street, Fall River, Mass., requesting permission to alter freshwater wetlands in the town of Tiverton. Approval of tax assessor abatements, $68,061.67. Any of the town councilors like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
I would. D2 and E.
Anyone else? I'd like to ask for approval of the rest of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion been made and second. All those in favor? D2, Councilor Janick.
So D2 was the DEM is looking at the application of Paul Faria to request permission to alter freshwater wetlands in the town of Tiverton. So this is just a notice that he's applied, correct? Correct. So if they approve this, then it would have to go on to like zoning or some other?
No.
No?
No. If they approve it, it's approved. Am I correct?
Correct.
They manage the freshwater wetlands.
I'm sorry?
They manage the freshwater wetland. They manage the freshwater wetlands.
Okay, so we don't have to do anything with this? It's
No,
just,
it's just a notification she's requesting.
okay,
It was for a septic system. So that's what so their septic system is approaching apparently, or maybe encroaching on wetlands. So that's why they have to get a permit. And assuming that the house that they want to build complies with all the zoning regulations and whatnot, you won't see this again. They're just notifying the town as a courtesy.
okay. It's way more than I thought it was.
So,
I thought they were like, I don't know, changing the course of the water or something.
No.
Michael, you said it's for septic?
The purpose of the alteration is for the construction of 2-bedroom, single-family residence with crushed stone driveway on OWTS, stone retaining wall, and rain garden.
Yeah.
Right, so it's for all of that?
Right, but yeah.
Okay.
There are certain setbacks, certain things
Right.
that they have to comply with, certain vegetation they have to put in. There's a number of requirements that they would do for a freshwater permit.
Right.
And this is done right away?
Yes.
All right.
Okay,
Off right on
Yeah, I know where it is.
all right. And then my other one was the tax assessment, all of the abatements, and there's pages of the abatements. So my understanding, these are people who gave this land to the land trust, so it's now under the land trust? And that's why we're abating the taxes on that?
Dave's going to speak.
Oh, you're here. Sorry, I didn't see you here.
Oh, no worries. So, yeah, actually, these are parcels that the Tiverton Land Trust had taken tax title to many, many years ago. So although the Tiverton Land Trust is exempt, when they own the parcel outright, when they only have tax title, they're not tax exempt, they're still taxable, because the prior owner always has the right of redemption. These parcels have now been in the ownership of the land trust, or the tax title of the land trust, for 40-plus years. At that point, they become basically their parcels by marketable title, which is a Rhode Island State Statute 3413.1. And Judge D'Addario represents the land trust. He sent me a letter. I forwarded that to our town solicitor. They reviewed it, and they agreed that they would be now owned by the land trust. So now they are indeed tax exempt.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So all those parcels on that list is strictly the land trust.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question.
That's what I thought.
Go ahead, Donna.
Are we, so we lose all this money every year, or is it just a one-time?
No, this is kind of a housekeeping thing. They do have other parcels that's kind of in the queue that they do just have tax title to, so I imagine at some point we are going to remove them from the tax roll, but this is just a one-time deal for these lots.
So when the land trust, because I think I've asked this before, the land trust, it goes to the land trust, nobody pays the taxes on that anymore, or does the land trust pay the taxes?
Right, they're tax exempt, so there's no tax for the land
No
trust.
tax.
Well, it's open space,
Correct.
correct?
It's open, no
Yeah.
tax.
And for the most part, a lot of these lots are,
Well, some of these lands could be
Really?
house
Yeah.
developments, which causes more
I
problems.
get that, no tax.
Okay. Sure.
So Dave, are these going to count against or?
your abatement total? Yeah, so.
If it is, we're way over.
Yeah, but this was something that's not really expected, so
Yeah, right.
when I give you the annual abatement list projection, that's strictly something that I take control of as far as abatements, if there's an appeal or an adjustment on someone's assessment. This is kind of outside the scope of that, although it still does count as an abatement. But a lot of these, the 2021 taxes that you're abating, I believe comes to around 5,100. The remaining number, the 68,000, the difference, that comes from all prior years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it goes back several years.
Okay.
So Dave, they were uncollectibles in those years, correct?
Correct.
So it won't really affect our current position this year either.
All right.
Sorry.
Madam Chair, I move we accept items 4D2 and item E.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve D2 and E. All those in favor? Comments received, owner 315 State Avenue regarding overgrown trees. I'll read it. To whom it may concern, I am the owner of 315 State Avenue, and I've been nonstop asking the Public Works Department to come and trim the trees that they planted on the sidewalk in front of my house years ago. The trees are growing into my house while causing damage to my property. Every year I call them, but nobody seems to care. I'm told to call National Grid, still trying to figure out how National Grid is responsible for trimming trees that the town has planted. The Public Works Department has come back to look at the trees, but they never do any trimming. I've already replaced multiple screens, and now my cable wires are hanging by a single bolt on my house. At this point, I'm ready to retain an attorney because nobody from the town will help, and it's costing me money. I want to vinyl side my three-family home as soon as possible, but not if I have to continuously pay to trim the trees in order to prevent them from damaging the house and windows. The town needs to resolve this issue as soon as possible, or we will go to the legal route. The town administrator assures me this is being addressed.
All those trees have been trimmed and cleared.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing, Arts and Artisan Festival, Alyssa Wood, approval of sound variance for Arts to 4 p.m. and approval of special event permit continue from 5/9/2022. Is Alyssa here? This is the third time now, Joan. I know she was notified.
She said she'd be here.
All right. So we'll continue it to the next, I guess we'll continue it, or you want to just,
I think we should just continue when it's in July, right? It's July.
Yeah.
We have one more meeting in June.
all right, we'll continue it. So do I have a motion to continue?
Second.
Motion's been made and second to continue this item. All those in favor? I do know she has been notified 3 times now. Approval of proposed amendments to Tiverton Code of Ordinance, Section 4244, fire pits on town-owned beach. Susan Erstling. Hi, Susan. You asked to speak?
I would like to. I mean, I don't know what it is.
Sure, I'm going to open the public hearing now since you have requested to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Susan, could you pull that a little closer?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Okay. I'll lower it to my height. My name is Susan Erstling, 36 Pointview Drive, which is out on Fogland Point, where I've been a homeowner for 40 years and a visitor before that. I know that area very well in respect to climate, environment, visitors, beach use, recreational use, and misuse. For example, using picnic table wood for fires. I'd like to express my serious concern about fire pits. Agenda. My number one concern is safety, which will be at risk with fires. It's often extremely windy in that area. In fact, as you probably know, it's one of the best windsurfing spots on the New England coast. You can observe the effects of the wind by watching the sand blow across the road, which has to be plowed at various points off the road. The work being done by the Open Space and Harbor Commissions, as well as Save the Bay, helping to build up the wonderful. In fact, I helped plant them on the last planting. However, embers or sparks from fires could easily be blown into the brush which surrounds that area. Brush fires are a possibility and can be exacerbated due to rising temperatures, drought conditions, and dry vegetation, all of which are predicted by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, for Rhode Island this summer. I've personally called the fire department in the past about a very large fire near the brush. There are automobiles parked on the beach, very close to where these fire pits would be. There are wooden homes out on Fogland Point, myself included, which would be susceptible to fire, and I believe putting out house fires there would be challenging. Regarding the ordinance, if you read the ordinance, there is no language about any ongoing monitoring of these fires. Currently, rarely do police patrol this area. The ordinance does not explicitly mention no alcohol, and although I know that's one of the rules of the beach, I don't know who's going to monitor that, and we all know that fires are often accompanied by drinking and risky behavior. There's no clarification in the ordinance about what a, quote, responsible person is, for example, age, or what other credentials might be required to allow the fire pits, or who will monitor fires and if they're completely extinguished. That's one of my main concerns, is the complete extinguishment. And there's no mention of consequences or fines for misuse. In summary, due to the risks of wind, brush fires, human neglect, and lack of monitoring, I ask you to seriously consider the risks involved given the projected climate conditions for the summer. Growing up as the daughter of a fire chief, I'm a little overly cautious about fires. That was what I was brought up on. But I do think that in this situation out at Fogland Beach, the risks are greater than the gains. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience like to speak? I need you to state your name and your address.
Good evening. Bob Akbina, 9 Wilcox Street at Fogland Point. My properties are, in fact, the first properties that adjacent the beach. So I agree with everything that Susan said, and my house would be the first one to catch on fire. We practice very safe fire burning. We cover our little pits in case we do marshmallows and what have you. We have a fire extinguisher, we have a hose, but occasionally you'll see even a little bit of spark come out of there with the wind. So it is extremely concerning to us as well to potentially see a brush fire that would take the fire department minutes, if not longer, to get to us. So we would be against this ordinance completely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mark Plimpton, 12 Point View Drive. It's a lot of work that a lot of people don't see. I'm completely against this ordinance for all the eloquently stated by Susan, and I just don't think it's a good idea. We don't have enough control over the things that are already wrong at the beach without adding on a new little component for us to monitor. So with that said, I'll leave it at that. I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, Stu Gilfillen, 5 Highland Way. I'm also the rec chair, so I do want to offer a couple of different things. When this ordinance and the Recreation Commission were putting it together, one of the things regarding placement was that the placement was going to be determined based on the fire chief and the fire warden. So there's no existing spot that specifically says it would be in this spot versus another, and I understand the concerns. Recreation actually helped pay out of our budget to redevelop those dunes, so there's a connection and an importance that we see in it. But there's a couple of other things that I would offer with this. First and foremost, we've been in constant communication as we develop this, both with the fire department and the police department, to make sure that, because the things that were raised, for example, oversight and awareness, and also the response time and those elements, a lot of what you're seeing in here was based on feedback we did receive from them. Additionally, we have security systems down there. We didn't have those a year ago. There are cameras in place, and one of the things that I did check with Chief Jones before coming tonight and speaking was saying, can I say that you'd be willing to work with us on ensuring that there's a review and enforcement opportunity there? And he said yes. So there's still work to be done on exactly how that would transpire. Certain things along the lines of fees, we can't indicate what the cost on this would be if we can't do it. Same thing with penalties related to it. So this would be really the first step in moving in that direction, but we can't do those things in place without having sort of the ability to greenlight it and go forward. There is a process that we would look at doing from a reservation standpoint, where using the new online reservation system, we would have a limited number of spaces that would be available every day. In year one in particular, it would be probably 2 or 3 fire pits at most. We would not expand it beyond that, just until we could determine what needed to be potentially tweaked. With any new process, there are always things that you need to consider. But we want to move very cautiously with this. We understand the concerns out there, but I would also say that our initial intent was not to place the fire pits in an area that were closer to the residences down at the end of the point. So I don't want to speak for my entire commission. I'm here again as a private citizen, but I would offer that was some of the discussion that occurred at those meetings.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hi. Good evening, Bruce.
For the record, Bruce Cox, Chairman of the Harbor Commission. My apologies to Mr. Gilfillen for not having him be aware of the fact this item was on our agenda. It was on at the last moment, and I candidly didn't really know what the issue was at the time. But I've now added him to our general posting for the Harbor Commission, which I think is good because there's a certain amount of crossover. The Harbor Commission in its meeting took a position relative to the fire pits unanimously that we felt that the fire pits on Fogland Beach were a bad idea at this time, that the fire pits on the other beach would be, at Grinnell's Beach would be fine as a trial. because the downwind issue isn't present.
But this isn't on Grinnell's right now, it's just, oh, but you recommend instead of...
Instead, I was under the impression it was at both beaches, but if it's not at Grinnell's at all, but that would be it instead as a trial.
This is basically Fogland right now that you're trialing this on.
Which I can do. So it is the ordinance itself states that it says beaches, but when we came forward previously, it was noted that the town council would have preferred to have it listed not only to Fogland, but that the hours would have been restricted to, I believe, 4 to 10.
Yes.
And there were no objections on my behalf when we presented that.
All right, go ahead, Bruce.
So we believe Grinnell's was also in the loop, and we felt that was a better test area, quite honestly. And the commission also took a position relative to the restricted hours, suggesting it was inappropriate.
The hours are inappropriate?
Yes, to restrict the hours.
Okay.
So you're suggesting there should be no restrictions on hours?
That was, pardon me?
I believe that's the other ordinance on the agenda.
That's the next ordinance. I got it.
I'm sorry.
I apologize, I jumped the gun.
Anyone else from the audience? Anyone else? Okay. Councilors, go ahead.
I guess my question is why?
Why?
This came up as to why we would want to have this activity. And it is really windy down in Fogland. To add to the burden of trying to, we have so much to watch now, it would be another burden for the police to watch, the town to watch. I don't know, we got enough to watch. I just don't understand, out of everything, all of a sudden, how this came up and that someone thought it was a good idea. I'm not saying one way or the other, I'm just wondering why.
Sure. So this actually came about because it's the same approach that Little Compton uses on their beaches down at South Shore. And in discussions with a number of people that frequent both Fogland and South Shore Beach, it was raised as something that folks might be interested in seeing. There was, candidly, a lot of conversation that came up about the fire pits that were burning, and one of the things that we looked at is there a better way to create parameters around this so that we don't end up with something happening that's illegal, if we could control it. It also is potentially a revenue source for the town. There would be a fee associated with it, and then also a refundable deposit that would be high enough to warrant people taking care of the space that they're in. So.
Right. Well, some things are not always a good idea just because there's revenue. Sometimes it's just, frankly, not worth the effort. I just think that it's like the windsurfing area of the world there. It's very, very windy, and it's remote. That's another issue. And yeah, we've got some security cameras up now, but if something catches fire and it's windy, I don't think there's any getting past that. Anyway, that was just some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so what do those pits look like? Do they have a bottom to them? Or is it just like a round?
It would be what
Just
at
a-
Little Compton, is that correct?
It'd be very
It's
similar
like
to
a
what
pop.
Yeah, it's similar to what you'll see them a lot of times at campsites as well, sort of the deeper wells. So
With a bottom to it?
there would probably be a metal piece in the bottom, but we'd have to take a look at exactly what would go in there. So there's a few different
In Little
styles.
Compton, it's just a ring.
Yeah, and when we spoke to them before, one of the things we talked a lot about was how they dealt with the disposal. And they said, by and large, they don't have to do it too often because it burns down pretty well.
Yeah.
So,
But then it leaves like charcoaly
Yes.
wood that's on the beach that people are going to then walk over.
Kids will play with it.
Like, does then we have to have somebody go out and clean that up?
so in the draft protocols, one of the things we would do is have the gate attendant staff in the mornings doing a walk down to check the area. So we're also looking for glass and other things, which they would do anyway, even if there wasn't fire pits. So they're checking for trash on the beaches and looking. So this becomes another element of that to take a look at.
Okay, so, and that was part of why, when we talked about the hours, I was concerned, because you've got a lot of little kids at that beach, and they're walking, and I just think it's dangerous, children and fire. But I know that we did talk about not doing it at Grinnell's, And if that seems like a better place, like, is that something we should talk
I
about?
can't remember why we talked about not having it at Grinnell's.
I don't
I can't
recall
remember
either.
that discussion, to tell you
Don't
the
want the
truth.
beach house caught on fire.
Well, no, if they go further left, if they go
And you
more
don't have,
south,
you don't have the
you wouldn't be
homes
near
there.
the beach house. It would-
Well, there's the parking issue.
First of all, there's fires at Fogland every day, am I right? Every night in the summer.
People are allowed to have grills.
They do it anyway. They definitely do it anyway. I go by there, I see it. The kids are there,
Drinking
and they have fires there. So I think this was a way to control that. But my problem is, I know it's not a well-patrolled area. That's how our picnic tables got burnt there, because the police weren't there. And I don't see that we have the manpower to go by there every hour to make sure that it's being controlled. I like the idea of it, but I do have some concerns. But there's fires there every night anyway, is that correct? A lot of nights in the summer.
Grills
I
are
go by
currently
there.
allowed down there. I believe grills are currently
I
allowed.
think Denise is talking about open fire.
No, I understand.
Open fire.
I used to hang around with somebody down right near your houses. And every night when I went by there and came home, there was tons of fires there. Kids drinking, a lot going on down there. Had brought it up in the past about this. But I do know that it's not very well patrolled. And I just don't think we had the manpower to go by there every hour. Am I right? He's just looking at me.
So, I mean, on average, during the summertime, we try to put extra officers on, but when you're talking about the beach, essentially that's at the Little Compton line. So we make it a point to patrol the cameras.
Yeah, but you're not going by there every hour.
We do not have permanent posts there all the time.
Yeah. I'm almost thinking the Grinnells, and I don't remember the discussion, why not Grinnells?
I think we just said it's not going to be Grinnell's, it's only. 'cause
Right, but I think Grinnell's would be more patrolled. Well, obviously, people go by there all the time. If something's getting out of control, there's no houses
There's no houses.
except for the bathrooms, God forbid if those went down.
Yeah. So,
And the sales, but if
So-
you go south,
But if we put, yeah.
if you go very, right,
sure. All I will offer is that this particular ordinance and also the next one have been brought forward based on feedback that the Recreation Commission has received about things that people feel would enhance their experiences of using recreational facilities.
yeah, and I
So-
do know that people have brought it up in the past, but Fogland always worries me because it's so remote.
It's a fair point.
And let's keep in mind, there's no fire hydrants down there. Pumper truck would have to get down there. Fogland, it's a beautiful beach, but
Understood.
as far as South Shore, there's not as many houses surround, there's no houses surrounding South Shore, really.
That was just what we had used as a template for
Yeah.
the ordinance. So.
Anyone
So,
else?
Can I ask him a couple of questions?
Wait, yeah. I'm just gonna have the council, go ahead, Jay.
Okay, Stu, so people will reserve these things through the Recreation Commission.
Correct. So the online,
There's going to be a fee, but we don't know what it is.
Where will they pick them up?
so when they reserve it online, they would then be able to pick it up at the front, the gatehouse when they're showing up.
They will
So,
pick them up.
well, that would be, the reservation would be on file, and then they would be able to show up and get the placard that they would use to showcase, because there'd be, let's say for the sake of argument, there are 2 fire pits, right? So that placard would indicate that there had been a reservation for that particular space for that night.
What I'm asking is the fire pit going to remain in place
Yes.
during the season?
Yes.
So then any,
There will be times where they'll probably get moved and cleaned, but I would say, by and large, when we were talking to the Little Compton folks, they weren't moving them too often, from what I recall.
then of course, at the end of the season, we're going to have to store them somewhere.
Yep.
But Little Compton, you go and pick up the actual pit,
that's kind of what yeah, you
They're kinda
pick it
big
up.
and heavy and
No,
dirty.
you actually pick it up, I know that for a fact.
They're like a big truck.
Yeah, and you pick it up and you put it in your
They're
trunk and you
hollow.
bring it down there. You don't leave it there.
It's to contain the fire in that small area.
It's not just left there, though.
No, I think they
No,
left them up.
I know
but-
that for a
but-
fact.
But we used some at Becasset when we did that. we did something, the big movie or something,
there
we
was
had them.
Tiverton.
But when they
The
picked them
movie
up, there wasn't any burning of the grass. So
There
were
was.
bottoms, there was?
Yeah, there was damage to the fields from what I recall,
Oh,
fairly
I guess
substantial
that's- I guess
damage.
that's why
Yeah,
we've
Deb.
never done it.
But your plan is to put them in certain spots, and they will remain there.
The location of where they will be marked, right? So after we, let's say for the sake of argument that this was approved, and we went down and looked at the specific locations where the fire chief was comfortable with them being, that would be the designated spot that they would live for the season. So one of the things we would look at is, are they living there permanently in that spot, or would it be something where our gate attendants would have to move them? If they have to move them, there's a different process that would have to go into it, and we'd have to make sure that they can in fact move them. But I think our intent off the bat was to at least have them in one spot.
What stops people from just showing up and starting a fire there when it's unattended?
And on any given day. Well, they'll be gone in the off seasons. They won't be there at the right time.
Yeah,
But
but-
during in season, I think if somebody wanted to show up and decide they were going to start a fire there at 5 o'clock when it wasn't reserved, that was something like the police department would be notified ahead of time who's burning that day, as would the fire department. So they would have a very clear understanding of who's burning, how many there should be, and you'd be able to see it on the cameras.
So we're going to expect the police department to monitor IDs and make sure the right people are at the right spot at the right time.
I think I wouldn't go quite that far with it. I think what you can say is if there are 3 fire pits and you can see on the cameras clearly that let's say that 2 of them are reserved and there are 3 fires, you can tell very clearly at that point that there are more fires than there are supposed to be.
What happens when myself with the reservation arrives and Councilor Janick is already there illegally? This could lead to...
A fight.
What?
Yeah, Councilor Janick will beat you up though, I think.
I can't remember. I do fires.
No, you see where I'm going with this.
I do.
It's gonna come down to the police department to monitor, control, and verify.
Understood. I would also say, that same type of situation where conflict could occur if somebody speeds past the gate and parks there in the middle of the night and decides they're not going to move and doesn't want to give up a parking spot, or if they decide of their own volition they want to go down and have a fire on the beach without anyone there, and somebody has children and there's an issue similar to what President DiMatteo said. So I think there's a couple of different places where the what ifs absolutely could come into play. This has never been done in this format before. I understand the hesitation and the concerns. Some of it, again, as we would move forward, would be about limiting the scope of how big this would be to make sure it was refined.
So,
Mike wanted to
I'm
speak, and
sorry.
I've been kind of...
that's fine.
So, a couple of things. As liaison to the commission, I certainly appreciate everything that you guys have been doing, and you've been doing some great stuff. This one, and I think you and I have talked a bit, I am not convinced that it's something we need to move forward with on either beach, and especially at Fogland. And, I'm not going to repeat what the residents down there have said, and I know, yes, sometimes there's fires occurring down there that aren't supposed to be occurring down there, but at least right now, if I'm a resident down there and I see a fire, I know it's not supposed to be there, so I can call up the police and they can come down. They're not going to be notified that, 2 people have the fire pits Monday night, nobody has it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, somebody has it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, is it really a legal fire happening there and somebody doing what they're supposed to be doing to control that fire? And given the winds and the like, I just don't think it's a good mix in either location. I'm not I did not grow up on the shore. So I grew up in an inland state, somewhat inland anyway. So I'm not used to, having beach fires and the like. So I understand that that's kind of part of the culture of beach communities often. But I just don't see it as a good fit.
Fair enough.
Deb, did you want to say
Well,
something?
what I was going to say is, we're also talking about hours, and between 4 PM and 10 PM, would be residents only, so this fire program would only be open to residents.
If in theory that next ordinance was passed as it's listed, I mean, and frankly, I'd like to keep the conversation separate if it's possible. But I think in looking at this particular ordinance, it could be something that could be restricted to just residents on its own, even without the second ordinance in play.
Especially if you're only going to do one or two. So do you know, did you talk with anyone from Little Compton? Have they had issues?
I did. I spoke with Jim Farrell, who runs all the waterfront programs down there and has been very helpful for us as a recreation department in general. And he indicated that there really haven't been any concerns down there. And, to Councilor Cook's point, that's a different venue. I respect that. But he did say that it has not been an issue for them since they implemented it.
Anyone else? Bill?
Bob Sedone, I'm also with the Recreation Commission. We thought long and hard over this. As we all know, they're having fires down there anyways. They're burning picnic tables that we put together last year. The way we're trying to set this up is it's going to be between 4 and 10 p.m. at night, which, if everything goes right, that's going to be Tiverton residents only. There's only going to be X amount of fire rings, 4 to 6 fire rings maximum. The people are going to have to register to get the fire rings. They're going to have names, stuff like that. They can only burn clean wood. They can't burn plywood, they can't burn garbage, anything like that. So if fire ring number 3, they go down there the next morning, and fire ring number 3 has bottles in there and trash in there, or they're burning, we know who that person was. We know who fire ring 3 was. And that person will never get a chance to rent a fire ring again. This is something new. This is something that we can try. If it doesn't work, we can stop it right away. But they're going to have fires on the beach anyways. We're trying to control what they burn instead of our picnic tables and trash. And it's going to be for Tiverton residents only. We can tell them where we're going to put the fire rings, the fire pits. We can work with the residents on the point. If they don't want it down that way, we can keep them more towards the south end of the beach. But this is something that's going to happen. And as far as hydrants and stuff like that goes, I was a volunteer for many years in this town. I think you got a pretty good water supply right there, where probably more than any hydrant would put out.
Well, you do, but...
You know what I mean? But again, the fires are not going to be that big. We're going to control what they're burning, tell them what they can burn. And, like I said, we did put some thought in this. And at first we were talking about doing like tractor-trailer truck rims like they have at a lot of campgrounds. But now we're talking about maybe going out and get some stainless steel rims. They will be handed out that day and returned when they leave. If number 3 doesn't return a ring, number 3 don't get a chance anymore. So, it's just something that, we'd like to, like I said, we'd like to try. We can stop at any time. Thank you.
If the residents see a fire right now, they can report it. If there's 4 people with 4 rings and a fire, but there's 10 other people, well, it's hard to determine who's legal and who isn't, really. I don't know if I'm for this, to tell you the truth. I have some reservations because it's in a remote area down at Fogland. I'd be more apt to say, let's try it at Grinnell's, where there's more police presence going by on Main Road, less buildings to catch on fire, if, God forbid, that happens. I wouldn't be against fire pits, but I think Grinnell's would be my choice.
Does that do anything to the grant that we had?
Well, we couldn't make it residents only. We'd have to make it Rhode Island residents.
What if we had ordinance that was Tiverton residents only from
No, because.
4 to 10?
No, you can't because the grant was provided, it was a Rhode Island grant. Just like if we charge Tiverton residents, then we can charge Rhode Island residents. If Tiverton residents are free, so are Rhode Island residents,
So you're somewhat incorrect. You'd have to provide it to all. It would just be, you could double the fee for any out-of-stater. It has to
Yeah,
be,
but it would be provided to all, though.
right. So
So
it's
you
not
could-
just Rhode Island residents.
Oh, yes, it is.
No, it's not.
No, the fee, you can double the fee.
You can double a fee for an out-of-stater, but you can't prohibit an out-of-stater from using it.
I don't think you're right, Chris.
Oh, I'm right. But, we have Massachusetts people that beach every day. They pay
Yeah.
double what the,
But in terms of just
yeah.
restricting the fire.
In terms of restricting the fire, I think
you
it would,
can't, whatever you provide for Rhode Island, for a Tiverton resident, you have to provide for a Rhode Island resident.
But not out of
And you can
state.
charge double for out-of-state. But you can't prohibit the out-of-staters from coming in.
So
Or
if you charge
applying
$20
for
for a ring,
It'd be 40 for them.
so from River, it would be 40, whatever you want, yeah.
and this is because of the state grant?
Yeah, it's a federal grant. It comes
I
from
know it is.
DEM. You
Okay.
can't prohibit anybody from using that beach. It has to be open for all the public,
So
All the hours, Chris?
all the hours. Yep.
we'll make one comment, except for tonight. I have not heard anybody opposed. Well, I've heard people opposed to Grinnell, or to, Fogland. I personally have gotten emails and phone calls from people opposed to Grinnell. And I haven't heard that here tonight.
For fires?
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely provided.
Well, I think that now that I'm told that we have to allow Massachusetts residents also, that could become a problem.
We won't get near it.
No. Anyone else? So at this point, we have to vote whether to accept the ordinance or reject the ordinance. Do what? Or to table?
Are you gonna close the public hearing, so we're?
I'm just waiting. A couple of people walked in and I wasn't sure. So does anyone else in the audience like to talk about the Fogland fire pits? No one else? All right, I'd like to close the public hearing. Any further discussion from the council? Deb?
No, I was gonna say, why would we table it, though? What
Yeah.
more would we?
Well, there wouldn't be any reason if, so do I have a motion to accept? Imagine if there isn't a motion, then it fails. That's how I don't have to have a
Motion to
mo.
approve, you mean, there's no motion to
Approve, right. So if I don't have a motion to approve, then it's, okay.
I was very for this, but I'm concerned about the people who live around, the potential for fire at Fogland Beach. You know, we have done a lot of work down there, so.
So as I can see, I don't have a motion to approve, so the ordinance fails. Does not pass.
Does not pass, doesn't fail.
It does not pass. Same thing. Thank you, Recreation Committee. You do a lot of good work.
They're next, too.
Okay, 6C, approval of proposed amendments to Tiverton Code of Ordinance, Section 5430, general rules applicable to all recreation and open space areas. Stu, you want to say something?
So as I'd mentioned previously, when the Recreation Commission looks at proposing an ordinance, part of the reason we're doing it is based on feedback that we're receiving from residents. In particular, one of the pieces of feedback we've been receiving is that when residents were going to the beaches in Fogland in particular in this case, they were finding that there were a significant number of, in particular, plates from out of state. And we wanted to see if we could provide an opportunity for them to have the advantage of accessing the beach first. Not to restrict access, but we did want to look at that as a particular option. One of the elements that came up in the discussion later on when this came forward was concerns from the windsurfing community about a restriction, the 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. restriction, because that's when there's good wind, which, as you mentioned from the fire pit side, I dropped my pen, is really the sort of the counterpoint to this. So I don't think you would have any objection from the Recreation Commission if there was a potential for removing the latter part of this ordinance to allow for the windsurfing community to enjoy that piece of it. But the morning portion of it is one that I think our commission feels very strongly about. So I offer that up just as a data point in this, based on the feedback that we had received after this came forward.
Mike?
And the main reason, again, especially for the morning, was to give local residents, Tiverton residents, the opportunity to first come.
Correct.
So in the afternoon, that's not as much of an issue late in the
It
day.
is not as much of an issue at that point. Correct.
And so that's just for Fogland, right, those hours?
Yep.
Yes.
That's what it says.
Yes.
Right, I'm just reiterating. Because we can't do it at
Does it say
Grinnell's.
We can't do it at Grinnell's, obviously.
Or is
It
it,
does say under 3, so access to areas of Fogland Beach. And we've spoken with the Open Space Commission, and I think they share our view on this. And Brian and I were speaking before, I think it would be a matter of them just bringing it forth from their commission as well. But I don't want to speak for them.
Okay. I'd like to open,
well, there's some things that need to be taken out.
yeah, I'm just going to open it up for public hearing, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, so he would, yeah.
All right, I'd like to open the public hearing. Would anyone like to talk about general rules applicable to all recreation and open space areas?
Buck, I think.
Okay,
Buck.
so I have two right now. I have Brian, and, I have three.
And Mark.
All right, come on up.
Oh, you have over there too. You have several.
Okay. All right. Yes, of course you can. First come, first serve. Go ahead.
Where's the ice cream?
Yeah.
Thank you, first and foremost, to what the Recreation Committee has done in the past couple of years since Mr. Cotto's taken over, since the chief has taken over. We're finally able to breathe at Fogland Point. Yes, fires continue to burn at night. Hooting and hollering continues all night long and all the way into the morning. There are people that are walking across my lawn in the middle of the night. And as you know, beautiful sky. If it's not moonlit, it's pitch black. And it's very startling, especially if I'm not home. I'm still at work. My wife is home alone with the kids. It's very, very scary. As I said earlier, my house is the first house on the beach. And so, thank goodness, we have good neighbors. We can kind of look out for each other. But it is extremely startling. After about 15 years of living there, we almost gave up and we almost decided to sell the house. This is a house that I bought to retire in, and we are all entitled to peace and quiet. Whether you're renting a piece of property or whether you own it, you have the right to enjoy it. Public does not supersede private enjoyment. I'm not asking people who come to Fogland Point not to come. I'm not asking them not to enjoy themselves. I simply want them to come at a reasonable time and to do reasonable things. Burning rubber, racing cars, burning fire, drinking alcohol, which leads to all these other things, are not things that go on in front of most of your homes. And it goes on in front of my home every single night, every single weekend, with fireworks going off and all that stuff. And although, again, the chief has been great, on the weekends especially, sending down a patrol, we really, really appreciate it. It has made a huge difference. But we need a long-term and permanent solution to allowing us to enjoy the fruits of our labor, as any other resident should. So I think that, again, the Rec Commission has done an incredible job in trying to balance everything, and has been very, very helpful in listening to us, and so has Mr. Cotta and the chief. But I understand the windsurfers, they're actually the good people that come. They're the ones that pick up the trash after themselves and take it away. They're the ones that if there's a pothole, sometimes they'll fill it. They'll cut the branches even so that their cars can get by. I'm not against windsurfers, but it's tough to balance how do you cut it off so that people aren't there beyond a reasonable time. I want to know what beach or what park do we have in Tiverton that's open after sunset? Which one? We don't have one. They're all closed. So why is Fogland, the one that's furthest away, the most difficult for the fire department to get to, the one that's the most difficult for the chief to send police to? Why is that one the one that we're letting all this stuff go on? Not this past year, not every single year. We decided to almost sell because my kid fell 5 inches away from a needle. That's not what you want in front of your yard. That's not what you want every morning when you're trying to have a cup of coffee and this guy is pulling his pants down to take a dump. Right on your lawn. And there are guys that, pardon me, pull out their penises to pee while my wife is standing there. These are not acceptable behaviors. People are not behaving the way they should. And last year during the summertime, my son and I did a project. For 2.5 months, we took a survey of the cars that are parking on Fogland Point. Many of them are coming, as many as 20 to 30 during the day before the guards get there. Get them there early so they can avoid paying. And they're there all day. And 80%, if I remember correctly, and I sent the data to Stu, but majority of the cars, I don't remember the percentage, but we did an average, were out-of-state, non-Rhode Island residents that were coming. I mean, why? Why are they coming? We need to think about that. In my opinion, they're coming because it's A, no monitoring, or B, it's cheap. It's cheap. We need to increase the fee. We need to do a better job at maintaining the beach. If we can achieve all of those things, then we can bring in other amenities that can be beneficial to the residents and non-residents. But unfortunately, people are drinking, it's against the ordinance. People are burning fires, it's against the ordinance. People are coming late night when they're not supposed to be there, and they're misbehaving. So, and we're stuck having to every night call the fire department and take the resources out of the fire department for potentially more dangerous things, but we never know. People have pulled a knife on me, people have thrown stuff at me. I mean, you can look at the police report. This is not a fun place to be at. It's a fun place for everyone else to visit, but not for us to live at. So I beg the commission to think about a long-term solution. And again, I'm not against the windsurfers, and the gentleman who I think was at the rec commission had a wonderful piece about a man who, you know, from Taunton, who came and windsurfed there, passed away, saving somebody else's life, and his daughter wants to come there and everything. I don't want to be that dead guy that my kids don't have a father because I go out in the middle of the night to tell someone to get off my property. I don't want to be the dead guy that tells someone, what are you doing on my property? I mean, it's every night, every weekend, and it goes on the entire summertime, the entire summer. We look forward towards the winter because it's peace and quiet. It's residents that are going by. So please, I don't want to be a poster that I passed away because somebody stabbed me and the police were too late to get there. Thank you.
Wait 1 second,
Bye-bye.
please.
So we're talking about the beach side. Do you see the similar issues on the open space side, the back side?
Where the surface.
Where the, well, no, the windsurfers that they're talking about, they come in
Yeah.
towards
Are
the
you-
bathhouses
are you-
late
are
in
you-
the day. On the back side where all the other windsurfers go during the day.
Where the moorings are.
The cove, thank you, the cove.
Yeah, the mooring with a cove, yeah, the cove with it.
Do you see similar behavior
Yeah,
over there?
there are fires burnt there, and in fact, it's a better spot for them to misbehave because it takes longer for police to get to. And so therefore, they can walk away from whatever they were doing and say, that's not me, it was burning anyway, I have no idea what happened. By the time the police come, you can see them driving away just minutes before the police get there because they're watching, they're looking. And look, we've all been teenagers, I get it. But it's just imagine if it's in your front yard every night, every weekend during the summer. I don't know if I answered your question
No, you
clearly.
did,
but-
because I just want to be clear that this ordinance doesn't govern that part of the area. This ordinance only governs the beach side.
Yeah.
So-
Once you enter Fogland Beach, you've essentially entered a very, very fragile environment. And I honestly don't know how, look, my moorings back there, I go through, but it's a very fragile environment. And so I think anything we can do to improve the environment, anything we can do to improve life safety of people that live there, and anyone else's for that matter. If they're there after sunset, they're up to no good. Plain and simple. They're there because they can get away with it. They're not doing it at other parks or beaches because they know they're going to get caught, and so that's why.
Thank you.
It's very hard to put a gate there. We've talked about it before, because you can't really put a gate to the entrance.
I think you can. I think you
How would
can.
the rest of you get in?
There's a fob. I mean, there are lots of communities. The fire department has their own way to get in, and
But the residents themselves would have to have.
a fob.
Like your
Yeah,
car.
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. I personally would be in favor of that. And if the commission is worried about the funding and what have you, I know there are those of us who would absolutely fund that. Happy to. I think that absolutely closes, we're still looking at monitoring, and the chief has to still send people down when the fires occur, and even if we put this ordinance on, it's still going to happen. The police still has to tend to it. I have mentioned to Mr. Carter that I think that a gate should be considered.
People could still go around it.
I mean, there are ways to we have a
Like
public.
at Brunel's, it's very different. Well, I guess not, though.
I mean, we have beautiful rocks. We have lots of them.
Oh, I know,
Trust me.
Tiverton. I know.
The entire state of Rhode Island has plenty of rocks.
Over my backyard.
But there are ways to absolutely make sure that people are not able to get in without it. I personally would be for it. I know there are other residents that are for it. I can't speak on behalf of other residents, but I'm sure there's certainly one here that is on for it as well.
Okay,
I greatly appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you. Next, there's a whole bunch, Bob, and then I'll let you. Hi.
Again, Mark Plimpton, 12 Point View Drive. I agree with Babak. Last year, I was assaulted. A guy came on my property and started throwing rocks at me because he thought I was staring at him as I was drinking a glass of wine in my backyard. So I think that limiting the hours later in the day is a good thing, because stakeholders in the community that you're going to see when you go to get a cup of coffee or whatever, I just don't think they're going to act as nefarious. If you're not from here and you want to come here and you want to act like a fool, chances are we're never going to see you again, and c'est la vie. I think one of the other issues is anytime that beach is open, some kind of bathroom facility needs to be open. People defecating in my backyard. I have fishermen exposing themselves on the rocks. I mean, it's so crazy when you think about it, to look out as you're drinking your coffee and see somebody literally squatting in your backyard. So I think a holistic solution, and the windsurfers, I don't know where they use a bathroom. They should be entitled to use a bathroom. The windsurfers aren't the issue. I think that we need to figure out how to get a facility, get it under control. Anytime that facility or that beach is open, there needs to be a place for people to go to the bathroom, especially if they're from out of state and they have a long ride home.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm going to hold it and I'm going to, get 10 minutes down the street. Like, they could have a 45-minute ride going home. So before anyone votes on anything, I would ask, or each one of you close your eyes and imagine what the people on the point go through when you look out your window and someone's exposing themselves and pooping in your yard. I don't know who would put up with that. And as far as the gate, I'll write a check for it right now. I'll pay for the whole thing. I'll electronic it, I'll give everybody a fob, I'll pay a company to monitor it. Whatever the case, we'll work out something with the windsurfing community, we'll figure it out, but we need to lock that thing down like every other place gets locked down at night. It's a little bit out of control. So I appreciate, again, everything you all do. I appreciate everyone that comes and speaks, but I really do think something needs to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Would you like to, who else? Brian.
Brian's coming up, and then somebody over there, I think.
I think it's him in the pink shirt now. Over in front of me.
No, I think the guy standing over there.
Brian Janes, Open Space. This is a minor point, and it sounds like this is going to be a much longer discussion. But as written, this only applied to the beach area, and Open Space has not formally considered this change, but I think just for the sake of enforcement, whatever policy applies to the beach should probably apply to the entire area. And we'd certainly be willing to consider that.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone else like to speak? Come on up.
Can you speak loudly from there?
Yeah, I don't want,
No.
I can actually bring you a microphone if you want. No. I don't know if that'll reach all the way. Please, the nurse and me.
It doesn't matter. Clint is on the Harbor Commission.
Oh, okay.
And he was.
Oh, it's Clint.
I don't, whichever. Pardon me?
What did you do?
Well, you know, we are a disciplined committee. No, I think he was, like I, refuses to yield to his age and whatnot.
We all have that problem
Oh,
sometimes.
University Orthopedics has me on the speed dial. Anyways, the Harbor Commission took the position that they are opposed to any exclusivity limiting access to the water for any citizens, period.
But then you are opposed to us closing the gates at Grinnell's.
Well, that's a different area, and this was an open area. This.
What would be the difference?
The only difference, well, it's a very interesting question. Like, the commission took that position. I did not necessarily take the position personally as a private citizen.
Because I don't see the difference between shutting down Grinnell's at sunset and shutting down Fogland at sunset, what the difference would be.
As long as the owners had access to their homes.
Right, as long
As long as, yeah, of course, they have to get to their houses.
That was the position that was taken by the Harbor
All right.
Commission. That's
All
what
right,
we're-
thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Is,
Clint may want to speak
You-
as a
you
private
coming-
individual as well. He certainly can.
So,
Clint, just talk loudly from there.
Clint,
Just talk loudly. Yeah, he wants exercise. Okay.
I don't know if
Good evening. My name is Clint Clemens. I reside at, hopefully will reside soon at 451 Sea Pallet Avenue. I'm speaking as a private individual, even though I'm on the Harbor Commission, and we've already voted on what you just heard Bruce present. My concern is this. First of all, we really need to listen to the residents. I think it's extremely important that we honor what's going on, not honor, but we listen and understand what's happening down there. This is a really big concern. My fear is that this may not be the right solution to that problem. Because it opens up a whole kind of a Pandora's box of enforcement. You end up with a situation where, for instance, if somebody's windsurfing or even gets on the beach at 3:30 in the afternoon with their kid or whatever, and they're not off, how do you get that person and that vehicle out of there at the end of the day? I think it becomes really difficult to do that because they may not be with their vehicle. So are you putting tickets on people's windshields? Yeah, and then what happens to the effect on the downstream effects of people wanting to come to Tiverton? My personal sense is that although Little Compton's been held up as an example, I'm not sure we necessarily want to emulate the way in which they run their beaches. In the Sapallet area, we're actually very proud of the fact that people can come onto the beach and use the beach, and granted, we don't have any houses there, but it's open to many underserved communities. I haven't really seen any evidence that says that the infractions and the indecencies that are caused are only caused by out-of-state folks or out-of-town folks. I mean, they could easily be caused by people from Tiverton, and I think that's a legitimate concern. So that takes me to the next suggestion that I have, is that we really beef up the enforcement of these laws that we already have that are existing. Because if we can't enforce the existing laws, how do we expect to enforce new ones? So let's see if we can't give these people some relief that are down there in a sincere and positive manner, and really take it upon ourselves to enforce the laws that we have against public urination, defecation, litter, burning trash, all these other kinds of things before we add a whole nother stack of things on there. But it has to be a sincere effort to address their needs. I really think that's important. Okay, thank you.
You can come up. I think I know him.
This is the,
Isn't this the dentist? Is it dentist?
I don't know.
Certainly the advantage
Well,
of
I need you to state your name.
Carl Ferreira,
I
65
thought
Harbor
so.
Ridge Lane, Tiverton. Certainly the advantage of going almost last is there's less I have to say. First of all, let me say that it's outrageous what these individuals had to put up with, or have had to put up with. And if there's anything that needs to be done by the end of this day, it's we need to find a reasonable, effective, efficient solution to creating an environment where these people can live. This is, what's been going on is outrageous. I'm here representing both myself and the Fogland Windsurfing Group with 340 members. We strongly object to this ordinance change, particularly in regard to the after-4 exclusion for non-residents. I'm also submitting a petition with 165 signatures, which reads as follows. We, the undersigned, object to any entity, commercial or otherwise, whose actions restrict or hamper public access, recreational use, or navigation of the Sakonnet River. Although we clearly know that windsurfers were not the quote-unquote target group prompting this change, it is clear that they will be significantly impacted. It's common knowledge among sailors that the sea breeze comes up in the late afternoon. This was acknowledged by the Recreation Chairman himself. Residents, former residents, and non-residents have been sailing at Fogland Beach for nearly 40 years. It is clear that this change was prompted by illegal activity at Fogland Beach. This, of course, is beyond a valid concern, but clearly it's also a police matter and should be addressed as such. Cameras, greater police presence, and other methods should be initiated to curtail and ultimately eliminate this activity. The ordinance response was to conflate illegal activity with public access restrictions. This ordinance change request, although well-intended, and creates a plethora of unintended consequences. Number one, this change only applies to Fogland Beach, and neither the North Cove nor Grinnell's Beach are included. This uneven application will certainly give rise to confusion and acrimony. This also has profound economic implications for business owners in town. The prospect of discouraging people from coming to town is not exactly the template for sound business practices. This will impact many of the town's small businesses who depend on the busy summer months to survive and thrive, particularly post-pandemic. 3, non-resident veterans and active duty personnel who presently are allowed free access to the beaches, and rightfully so, would also be denied access before 8 a.m. and after 4 p.m. Finally, people who are turned away, particularly those who have come from a long distance, will naturally find their way to Sepauwett. Simply kicking the can down the road both addressed at Sepauwett. Whenever rules, regulations, and laws are enacted, they oftentimes are done so without a complete or even partial understanding of the ramifications in the lives that it affects and the extent to which it affects them. To that end, I will leave you with 2 examples of how this change impacts everyday people. Oftentimes when I show up in the late afternoon for the sea breeze, I notice a man and his dog near where I park. Upon striking up a conversation, I learned that he had served 2 tours in Vietnam. As unlikely as it would seem based on his looks alone, a white guy with dreadlocks down his back, he has earned 2 engineering degrees from Northeastern University, works for the city of Fall River. Comes to Fogland nearly every evening after work because that's where he finds peace. This man has survived the Viet Cong, Agent Orange, and other deprivations while serving our country would be turned away under this modification. I can just picture the conversation at the gate. I'm sorry, sir, it's after 4 p.m. This is Tiverton, we don't value your service here. This would be a sad indictment and a poor reflection on our town. The second example concerns a man whom I knew well, sailed with him for over 30 years. He was born here, raised his family here, and I've been asked by his daughter to read the following letter. I was hoping she'd walk in so I wouldn't have to do it. Dear members of the Tiverton Town Council, my name is Megan Heath.
George.
I am the daughter of George Heath. My father was a longtime Tiverton resident and windsurfer at Sapala and Fogland for many, many years. My father was a man who lost his life at the Taunton Galleria Mall Bertucci's on May 10th, 2016. His life was taken while saving a pregnant waitress from being viciously attacked by a mentally unstable man who ran into the restaurant and started assaulting her. The waitress and her unborn daughter survived the attack thanks to my father's quick action, but unfortunately, my father did not. My father died a hero. I do not want to make this letter about that horrible day, though. I know I'm only one person, but I'm hoping to speak for many when I express how valuable these locations are to many of us while expressing my own personal attachment. I would have loved to personally attend this meeting, but I am recovering from a recent C-section. These beaches have become so much more than just beaches to me since the passing of my father. He was cremated, so I don't have a grave site to go to on a tough day, or even a good day, and feel close to him. Birthdays, Father's Day, holidays, or when I'm just looking for that kind of peace of mind, I get in my car and drive to Fogland. That is where I feel closest to my father. I go there to clear my head, to cry, to laugh, to relax, and most importantly, to reminisce and remember the good times with my dad. My father's friends, as well as my father, right up until before he passed, have been windsurfing at these spots for well over 30 years, along with many families who enjoy the simple things. Despite being born and raised in Tiverton most of my life, I am now considered a non-resident. As such, if this ordinance passes, myself and my newborn daughter would not be able to visit my father after 4 p.m., when I would be most apt to go. My father would never have wanted this. I am begging whomever needs to be begged. Please don't allow this. My father died a hero, but he also lived his life as a hero, my hero. He was my hero for giving me the best childhood a girl could have dreamed of, and when I think back, it's memories at Fogland that stick out. Please don't take that away from us. Thank you for your time hearing this. Sincerely, Megan Heath. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else in the audience?
Bob?
Bob, I'm sorry, I'm looking right over you. I don't know how it is to ignore. I can't ignore you usually.
For the past 2 summers, on Saturdays and Sundays, I've been getting down to Fogland between 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. We get between 20 to 30 cars that come in before the gates open that should pay and are not paying. We're losing about $1,000 a weekend, if not more. I have a lot of complaints from Tiverton residents that they get to the beach, all the good spots are taken. There's one person that goes down there, and he'll take 3, he takes a middle table, and he'll set up 2 other tables. So he's reserving 3 spots for when his family members come in. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make it fair to the Tiverton residents, give the Tiverton residents first shot to get in. If they want to get there before 8 o'clock, that's fine. If you get there after 8 o'clock, well, you had your chance. Out-of-town residents are going in there. They're using our beach. They're using the water. They're using the bathrooms. They're using toilet paper, paper towels, whatever, and they're not paying. And it's not fair. It's not fair for the Tiverton residents. Once they get in there, you try and you approach them and say, hey, where's your pass? We don't have to pay. And then at 4 o'clock, they're lining up on a road, and they're coming in like it's Seekonk Speedway. They come flying in, 5, 10, 15 of them at a time, because they know they don't have to pay, and they tell you, straight to your face, we know, we don't have to pay. If we get here before 9 o'clock, we don't have to pay. If we get here after 4 o'clock, we don't have to pay. And it's just not fair to the residents of the town, it's not fair to the taxpayers of the town, and we should take care of Tiverton residents first. If you look at the surrounding communities, Little Compton, they're doing the same thing. Westport residents only. People know that they can come into Tiverton basically for free. And, you know, it's not right. We're gonna start to take care of Tiverton residents first. And, you know, the outsiders are gonna have to pay. The non-residents are gonna have to pay.
How are we gonna monitor? This is the most important question I have. Who's gonna be there at 8 o'clock in the morning to make sure it's Tiverton, before 8 o'clock to make sure it's Tiverton residents? I don't think it's gonna be the police, will it? Like, you're gonna have someone there. Like, that's my problem. Unless you have the police come at 8 o'clock and tell every, I don't understand how we can monitor it.
So I was kind of waiting for my turn.
Thank you. Well, you were being very patient.
Yes, I was. And all of the concerns that were echoed by the residents, I don't disagree with. I mean, I've personally spoken with many of the residents here, and they're valid concerns. But just to remind the council that you allocated a significant amount of money in my budget this year, $35,000 for summer beach patrols.
Right.
So, and part of that, what my plan is, and what I plan to present to the administrator and you next time, I'd like to hire seasonal special officers, just like every other beach community does. Middletown, Narragansett. These are officers like you see already out there, with ball caps, yellow shirts, and they carry radios. They can act as a deterrent out there. They'll also be empowered as special officers to write citations. They'll be trained and they'll know if there is something that is a dangerous situation, that's when we come. But as far as being down there, and we've done that for the past couple seasons, even during COVID.
At Grinnell's.
At Grinnell's and at Fogland and at Sepauwett. Officers Mello and Savigny have been out there significantly, and I know everybody knows them because they walk around the beach and they're extra friendly. And that's the whole purpose of it. And I say that with an emphasis on friendly. But that's the whole purpose. So we're not discouraging anyone from coming to the beaches. We just want people to come and behave. And the people that do come and they don't respect our beaches or they do break the law, that would be something that we would be responsible for enforcing. As far as to your question, Madam President, we won't be there to open the beach. That's the responsibility of the Recreation Department. But my plan would be to have at least one special officer there the majority of the summer and on weekends, 12 hours a day.
My concern is that 6 to 8, though.
6 a.m.
6 a.m. to 8 a.m.
So
where only Tiverton residents can go there, but who's going to make sure that happens?
So my conversation was, in speaking with the Recreation Department, and specifically Mr. Sodoma, he was approaching people and getting into arguments with these folks.
Of course he was.
So, you know, no disrespect. My concern was it was a safety issue. That if someone's going to challenge him, that, listen, I'm at the beach because I got there early, I'm not going to pay. There was no enforcement mechanism for the police department to say, leave. Or we're going to tow your car unless you pay, and we're going to give you a ticket. So there was no enforcement mechanism, which is why, in speaking with the Recreation Commission, there needed to be some teeth for the police department to force people, if they didn't want to pay or get there early, that we could go down there and make them leave or make them pay.
Okay. I do want to make something clear, though. Grinnell's Beach, we shut those gates.
Yes, ma'am.
At sunset.
Yes, we do.
So whoever said that we don't do it at other areas.
We do.
We do it at Grinnell's Beach.
The issue, and I know it came up about the cars. So if the town was to consider a gate, there's a lot of different issues with that, that, you know, we can get into but what happens at Grinnell's is the police department, before we lock the gate, we clear the lot.
Yeah.
So we run the plates. If someone doesn't move, we lock you in.
Right.
And then they can call the police department and say, I got locked in, and then they're facing either, depending on where they are, if they're in the parking lot now, because this was years ago, there wasn't really a formal parking lot like there is now, They're in the parking lot, then we'll leave them and we'll ticket them. And then they got to call the police department for a police officer to come down and unlock it.
Right.
Or we'll tow it out of there if it's in an area that they should not be parking. And then they can call us and find their car.
Well, we could do that at Fogland.
We routinely clear the beach. We'd go down there with the officer responsible for securing Grinnell's. It's his responsibility or her responsibility to clear the beach before they lock it.
Did you want to speak?
When we're done with the public hearing.
I have some.
All right, so all this that's going on, you're well aware of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way that we could have more police presence there at night?
So my plan, like I said, is to have more officers there during the summer. It's that one.
Until what time, though?
Till it closes on Labor Day. Oh, you mean time as far as?
Time of the day.
Time of the day, 10 o'clock at night. And this is also the cameras at Grinnell's and Town Farm went live about 3 weeks ago. So, and they're pan-tilt zoom, meaning that the dispatcher knows that if they see flames on the camera, send the police. So it should be pretty clear now.
So are the police there now at 10 p.m.? No, this will be something new you're starting.
So this is something that the police department patrols all the areas of town. But based on the number of officers who are working, right now there are 3 officers. I'll give you a quick example, ma'am. We have 3 officers working right now. Before I came to the meeting, because I was late, there's a person at the ACI that is wanted on house breaks. The ACI said, you need to come get him or we're going to let him go. We have a warrant out for him. We are ordering back 2 police officers to go get him to make sure that we bring him back. My example in saying that is when other things take precedence like that, it takes away from our normal routine patrols.
Okay.
Are we done with the public hearing?
No, but if we have questions for the chief, does anyone have questions for the chief?
Not for the chief.
Yeah,
I just have something I want to say.
Okay.
Well, if I can just ask, do you have any suggestions? I mean, people should not live like this.
Absolutely not.
They should not have their personal space occupied by people doing no good.
Correct.
But we want to keep the waters open, we want to keep for recreation, and like, how do we control that?
And fortunately, you and the majority of the council, the whole council, based on my recommendation to take monies, significant money, because how we had been doing it in years past, you were taking overtime, out of police overtime, which covers all your police officers, all your dispatchers, every single police department employee. We were using that money to fund special officers to go to the beach to monitor the beach. And we did it kind of as a pilot program, definitely during COVID, when we saw the beach population explode. Yeah. So it worked. So now we have money carved out specifically for that purpose. I want to and now we have a community policing sergeant who would be responsible for overseeing these reserve officers and these special officers and scheduling them to make sure that we have a pretty constant presence down there, and also to train them, because we're also reformatting our municipal court, so that officers can, like every other beach community does. You got an open container, boom, you're getting a ticket. You can go to the police department and pay it like a parking fine, or you can appeal it and you go to municipal court. So I think the key to all of this is presence and enforcement. And with the cameras that we haven't had ever, for the first time, we'll be able to monitor it. And I know in speaking with the Recreation Commission, we're still adding cameras because I know they want to move the guard shack. The plan was to put a camera on the guard shack, and we still will, which acts as a choke point. So every single vehicle that's going to pass that guard shack, I'm going to be able to take a picture of it. So I'll know who's in the beach, and I'll be able to get a license plate off of it. So we'll be able at least to find out who these people are. That's my plan.
So the patrolmen who are, the special officers who are on the beach walking with their caps, how many hours a day would they be doing that?
I'd like to have an officer there, whether we break it up into blocks, 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours a day. Definitely during significant heat waves, weekends, Memorial Day weekends, 4th of July, that would be the plan. And then just randomly. You know, if there's a specific problem, in speaking with the residents, they know that Thursday nights are bad, or Tuesday nights there's something going on. We can work with them so we can have a presence there to address that. And it's worked in the past.
We're not there to, jump out of the bushes and surprise people. We want to be there just to get the message out that the officer will walk the beach, introduce himself, hey, what's going on, how, and it's worked really well up until this point, that families know that this is the kind of area that don't come and mess around at the beach. And that's the message that we want to, because if you do, there'll be consequences, and then we'll deal with those consequences.
Because the gentleman was right, we don't want to just move it, the whole problem.
Correct.
Because it will go right down the road.
Correct. Yeah, this isn't exclusive to Fogland. This will be all the beaches, all the recreation areas, Nanaquacket Bridge, every area that we have significant complaints about because people come to town and they take it too far. Trash, being in the roadway, traffic issues. It's that 100 days of summer that we're kind of gearing up for.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilor Burke?
So if we restricted it in the mornings to Tiverton residents only, and Chief or Stu, I'm not sure, just, you don't walk back yet. I'm just trying to figure this out. So I'm a Tiverton resident, but I have a relative of mine who lives just over the line in Fall River. We like to go to the beach together. We like to get there early at 8 o'clock. So I can go down now, and we usually go in the same car. So can I go down and my friend can't? Or my relative?
Yes. Basically.
Okay.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of people that want to talk.
One more thing. In the past, we've had little day passes that they put on the dashboards. This year, we're trying to get some bigger passes that they're going to be able to hang on the mirror. So this way here, the police department goes down, they can see.
Yeah, Bob, I'm not talking about that. I'm
just saying that.
But that's not really on point. I'm saying before 8 o'clock in the morning, if I'm a Tiverton resident, I want to go there at 7 o'clock and I'm going with my uncle
From Fall River.
from Fall River,
He can't come.
I can't do that, right? But under this.
If you're in the same car, you should.
That's not what this says. This says residents. This says residents.
That's not what this says. That's the problem. It says
So-
only Tiverton
So-
residents.
So you would have to amend it to say if you're accompanied by a Tiverton resident, that someone from out of state could go with, that has to.
So, and I'm going to do a lot of what ifs. So I have a big 15-passenger van, okay? I'm going to be,
He has a bus.
I'm a Tiverton resident. I'm going to start a business. I'm driving. I get 15 people, 14 people from
What is
here.
this, south of the border?
And, you pay me $10. I go in, you get in at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm not disagreeing with the principle,
Little Compton does it, though.
So,
but they have a gate, don't they?
so Mike, would you be a coyote?
Yeah, they have a gate, but the gate's open, though.
They close it every night.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is residents are allowed from 6 to 8 or something. The gate is open where non-residents can go in there. They don't monitor it that well. Trust me.
We're not going to be doing ID checks on individuals, are we?
We're going to do DNA.
I just think if somebody happens to sneak through the system as a passenger in the car of a Tiverton resident, I mean, it's kind of, that'd be like the least of our.
Well, Mike,
And I understand that, but the way, we have to look at the way it's written.
Yeah, I get
And if the chief or one of his officers goes down there and my uncle's there with me, technically,
I don't think they're gonna ID them, they're gonna check the plate.
they're going to check the plate on the car.
Yeah.
They're not gonna just stop and frisk everybody there. They're gonna just check their license. License plate.
Well, the car will have a sticker. That's what they were saying.
no. Car doesn't have to have a sticker.
Anyone can get a beach pass.
No, but if it's before 8 o'clock, I don't have to have a sticker.
You don't have to have anything.
But I think Babak wanted to.
Sure. This is we have a long agenda.
I greatly appreciate the debate, and I greatly appreciate the counterpoints that everyone has brought up thus far. I respect the veterans. We owe them. But my family owes to have me alive. The chief can't get there fast enough. Yes, they've got the camera, they're gonna get the plate number, they're gonna get the person, they're gonna prosecute the person. I'm dead. I'm no longer around. And all I'm saying is that I've been in situations, not once, not twice, to the point where I wanted to sell the house. It was on the market. I shouldn't have to go through that. None of you should have to go through that. The town would be sued by my family if I'm dead and you don't stop this, because you have the opportunity to circumvent this. No one else's rights are above mine, and it's your responsibility to protect me. Do what you want to do and come up with all the scenarios, but protect me, because the chief can't protect me. He can't get there fast enough. The ambulances will not get there fast enough to save me when I have a trespasser and I am protecting my property. I don't go out anymore, but why should I have to live that way?
And I don't want to sound like I'm not empathetic, because I certainly am. If I were living down there, I'd have and we talked about this the other night at the rec commission meeting. I'm actually leaning towards, can we figure out how to put some type of a gate up there? Because everything that I'm looking at with these things, they're Band-Aids that will rip off easily. So there's more questions than answers, and I think, some of these are, certainly for the problems that the rec commission has seen and Bob has seen, they're a step in the right direction in terms of addressing that. But at the same time, we can't guarantee, just as the chief gave his example for tonight, if something happens up in the north end of town in one of the neighborhoods behind CVS, there's also somebody there who might need that kind of help. So
that's right.
It's not that we're not trying to be protective of our residents, it's trying to figure out how can we balance with the resources that we have. So I am more than willing to have a further conversation, because it's not on the agenda tonight, about whether or not an effective gate system can be put up that meets the needs of public safety, meets the needs of access, and meets your needs as residents down there. At the same time, I'm not sure, as the president said, I'm not sure how we can enforce this piece. Certainly, I'm willing to take out the 4 to 10 and stop it at sunset, which I think is what all of you, the residents, are comfortable with. I also think, as Brian James has said, if we're going to do this, we need to do it for the whole area, not just for the beach area. And I'm not against the 8 a.m. thing. I just don't know how easily it can be enforced. That's all.
I agree with everything that you've said, and I can't thank the commission enough for the council for opening this dialogue, because I'd like to retire here, and I'd like to live here for the rest of my life. And so for me to do that, I need to have peace and quiet, and I greatly appreciate it. And I think a gate resolves it. And as you heard, my neighbor, we'll pay for it. But the issue, people, whether it's this meeting or next meeting, what about my rights? What about the veterans? What about the windsurfers? What about, those are supplementary to someone who is living there and enduring this. And Bob, God bless him, getting into it with people. Just imagine if someone's living there and it's their property.
Well,
That's what I'm going through.
I don't think it's your only safe concern. It's people that are there also.
Of course.
Who are sitting there watching the waves and get assaulted by these people. So I not only think it's the residents that it's unsafe for, but it might be unsafe for anyone that goes down there after hours at night, because you don't know who you're going to run into. So I'm leaning towards a gate also, to tell you the truth, but I've been leaning that way for a while now, because we do gate off Grinnell's, and there's no reason why we shouldn't gate Fogland.
I don't see the difference.
Well, and the difference in my opinion is Fogland is a place where people live. And,
No, of course, that's
and so
right.
if we're doing Grinnell's, I think we should do Fogland also. And other beaches close. Horseneck closes, South Shore closes. Most public beaches, the gates go down.
If anyone's there after sunset, I don't care how much peace they want. What goes on after sunset?
Oh, I know, I've seen it.
Is not safe for anyone, especially someone who is there with his family. Thank
But
you.
even other families that are just at the beach also. Or it's just some kids that wander down there and run into an unsafe situation.
It's known to be a getaway place.
Oh, yeah, ever since I was young.
So, Madam President, before you get too far on this gate thing, I believe there's a CRMC open space access on 3 Broadway. It's blocked off with boulders right now, but it still has to be open to the public.
On 3 Broadway.
It's that whole road.
Yeah, that's that whole. So
Am I correct, Bruce? On your harbor management plan, isn't there a 3 Broadway at Fogland? There's a CRMC open space access point?
There is any access point.
It's a right of
Exactly
way.
where it is relative to the road, I can't speak.
I don't think you can put a gate up. We just went through this with
yeah, the other place.
that place down at Rikers, so yeah.
Right, is it a right of way?
Yeah.
I-
So 3 Broadway is the right of way?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be blocking access to the CRMC right-of-way. The CRMC right-of-way is for foot traffic. It is not a boat ramp. So if they want to park, if we want to leave a little room up at the front of the gate and somebody wants to park and hoof their way down to the CRMC access, perfectly fine with me.
I think we ran into this, though.
So that's not going to stop the people from coming down and walking the neighborhoods and doing the,
I think the mile walk would deter most people, and then if you're a real avid, that you want to go do an access point at midnight and walk the mile, then I'll entertain
More power
it.
to you.
so the issue isn't whether or not we want to. We went through this with CRMC about another area already, and we were told we were not allowed to put a gate up. That had to be accessible.
Which
We
area-
have
which area-
temporarily blocked that off,
Which area was that?
3 Broadway.
No, what was
Two
it?
Broadway.
Two Broadway.
Where's Two Broadway?
So it's still the road that goes out to the cove.
Howard Avenue.
When you're coming down Sapala past Emily Ruckers, you
Yep.
take that left, it's
Yeah.
right there on the right.
Okay.
Yeah, that house.
And that went in
has
front of
the same
CRMC?
Well, we inquired with them, they told us no.
Okay. All right.
So, and we have blocked that so-called boat ramp off, the parcel between Mr. Venus properties and
Yeah.
the town's properties. We have tried to do it to keep the trash down to a minimum. It was because it was,
Yeah.
it was pretty excessive when we went in and explored what was going on there. And nobody's complained yet, but it's, I think I've got 1 or 2 people that have voiced an opinion about it. But they have access during the ability to park on
Yeah,
the beach, so.
I don't think anybody's against making blocking access,
So
but
we would have to inquire from CRMC about that particular area.
Yeah, we should inquire just to make
We
sure.
will.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
I think we need to continue this until
I
we.
agree.
It needs more work,
Yeah.
yeah. I just have one thing to say.
Yeah, I'm going to close the public hearing. Does anyone else want to speak? I'm going to close the public hearing for now.
Yeah.
Close or continue the
I'm
public
going to
hearing?
continue the whole subject, but I can close it for tonight.
No, you're going to continue the public hearing to a future date undetermined.
Right.
Right. I just want to say that no one should be confronting anyone. You don't know who you're confronting. I think if you think there's a problem, you need to call the police. You don't know if they got a weapon on them. You have no idea who these people are. Just call the police. Don't start confronting people in these remote areas. I know you mean well.
I know,
You don't
but
want
Donna,
somebody
if it's
hurt.
your backyard and you go outside and
No,
all
I'm-
of a sudden
I'm
there's a
talking
naked
about
guy looking at you, you're
Rec-
going to confront him.
I'm not, well,
Or you're
they
gonna say
need to
go
call the
away.
police. I'm talking also about people that are on committees. I don't want them hurt.
Right.
Also, lifeguards, it's remote down there. The minute they have a problem, they need to call the police because they are also supposed to uphold some of our policies and ordinances. But what happens is people don't like no. They don't like to be told no. And personal experience on a July, I won't get, is that lifeguard was in a bad situation with people that were drinking and had was by himself.
I know what you're doing.
Okay, so we just really need to be careful, Stu, okay? Thanks.
I think Donna just wants you to tell.
I'm trying not to point anybody out. I just don't want, if you see something going on, just call. Don't go up to the people, don't go to the car.
May I make a 30-second comment?
Sure.
So I do want to offer that when we speak with our gate attendants and our lifeguards, we do tell them that at the first case of where there's conflict to reach out to the police. That's not what they're there to do. The police can handle that, and we encourage them to. So as part of the initial training we do with them, we absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And then from a commission standpoint, it's something we've also talked
I don't
about.
think you were commissioner at the time.
Potentially not. The other thing I did want to mention is that there is a porta potty that is open 24 hours down there next to the bathhouse. It is on one end of the beach, something that could be potentially looked at, but I did want to offer there is a restroom there. I would hope that if nothing else gets taken away from tonight, it's that enforcement is an issue that continues to be a problem, and supporting the police department and recreation is very grateful for the support.
And we certainly understand that, and I think we all appreciate you coming before us with possible solutions. As we all know, these are fairly complex issues, even though sometimes we're not sure that they're going to be so complex, but they are. So we thank you. I'm sure we'll talk more about, what we can do. Anything else on this agenda item? Okay. Moving on.
Do we need to vote to continue?
Like to have a motion to, actually, we have to wait a moment.
We lost our quorum.
We only have 3 people here.
Oh.
Well, somebody had to make a phone call and somebody had to use the restroom. Go ahead. No, it'll be quick.
So we'll continue the public hearing until...
When we get a 4th person back, we will have a motion to continue the public hearing until an undetermined date.
No indifferent.
Hope everybody has good Memorial Day plans. Marnie's coming home, briefly. We'll get to see her for about 4 hours.
Is that your wife?
No, our daughter.
Oh. My wife's beginning to wonder who I am.
What? Yeah. Yeah, on our way to the Cape for a wedding and back.
Well, that's kind of what you want about this people go for weddings.
And no, we lost a quorum.
Anybody know a good song?
Oh, you lost a quorum, I'm sorry.
So, Madam President, I'd like...
I had to check out my dog.
To move us along, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing on the beach access ordinance until a future undetermined date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to move it along.
I thought that once you started with a quorum, you could continue going forward. Oh, okay. That's a problem. All right, motion's been made and second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Continue the meeting, we can't vote.
Right.
Okay. We did it once in school. We knew how to vote.
If somebody calls the quorum, you know how to work.
All right, thanks, everybody, for coming, and this is a problem that's not going to be easily solved, obviously. 6D, approval of the proposed amendment to Code of Ordinance 2-1, fees and fines, planning fee schedule, and escrow schedule. Who is speaking? This is you? No?
Can be. I know the planning board's here too, so members of the planning board. This was a fee proposal that was put forth by the planning board. It has been languishing for some time. It does need to be approved.
We have some concerns about this. do we
So
not?
the only concerns I have is around the escrow fees. That there are a number of things that I do believe that Steer should, or whoever the engineering firm is, be cognizant of as it relates to entertaining those types of services when they may not be necessarily needed. I don't want any of the applicants to have to incur costs that they shouldn't have to incur. But as it relates to the things that the planning board needs is traffic studies, the things that they need to have done, I don't think there's ever been a question about things that need to be done.
Well, it was brought to my attention that developers will come here with approval from DEM.
Correct.
They've gone through all the necessary paperwork. They've gotten approval, and then the planning board sends steer out.
So if they get a RIPD's permit, or they get a, on-site wastewater or something like that, their engineer, the applicant's engineer that they've hired to do those kind of works to get the permitting through DEM are required to file reports with DEM. There are meetings with DEM. Planning board has been sending the town's engineer to go to those meetings. It has nothing to do with the town.
it's
We're not the regulatory agency
So
for
who-
DEM.
So the developer themselves is they're
Correct.
double dipping because
They're not double dipping, they're paying twice for the
They're
same
paying
engineer.
Right. They're paying twice.
Right. So
They're paying
those,
for their own engineer and then
and
our
it gets to be
engineer.
expensive. And this is an onus that is on the applicant as it relates to their licensing and their regulatory issues with the Department of Environmental Management that really have nothing to do with the town.
And I don't know if there's any instance where the decision's been overturned.
It's never been.
With
And there's
the-
actually never, in most, and we did some review of most of these where there has never been any comment from the engineering firm.
My question is, if they go and they get their DEM permission and permitting and everything they need, and then the planning board sends steer out to make sure that they did it correctly, let's say, then there's never been an overturn of the decision. So steer hasn't said, oh no, this wasn't done right, they didn't do the DEM permitting right, blah, blah, blah. And then DEM has said, oh yeah, it's not allowed.
That has not happened.
Okay. So they're paying twice for the same service, for the same answer.
They're being, yeah, they're paying twice for something they shouldn't have to.
And yep, one sec. So, and that would be the escrow fees.
It all comes out of the escrow fee.
All comes out the escrow fees. Rosemary?
Madam Chair, I'm not here to refute, but that's not, you hear complaints, and we have developers come in, and I think the whole, and Chris's concerns are true, but I think you should talk to the whole board, or the administrative officer, or the chair, and unfortunately, the chair has jet lag. He's been out of the country, and is not here tonight. But when you have complaints, we have to have a peer review, and the peer review will review, that's part of the package usually. And the escrow goes back to the, if there's money left over, it goes back to the applicant. That's part of the, they're giving you part of the story, but you don't
Well,
get
it's
the whole
not,
story.
I mean, I think the planner would agree on some of this also, although she's not here. But what is your reasoning for, if they have all their permitting intact, why do you send steer back out?
Why do I what?
Why is steer analyzing what this engineer
It's
is?
part of the whole package that goes together. There's not just those permits in there. And they make sure that the permits are in order. They make sure that all the points on the checklist.
Why can't the planner do that?
Why can't she?
Right.
And it's
Because
not
then it-
happening.
Well, it's not happening because we're charging steer to do this.
Do it.
No, it's not all, it's the technical things that steer is charging for. They go through. I mean, they
I've
check-
seen where they've been charged to go to the meetings with the applicant and DEM. I've seen them where they've actually gone to the DEM meetings. It's not, we don't regulate DEM's licensing. And we shouldn't be sending anybody that we're paying as a town engineer to go look at something that somebody else is licensing.
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of, I haven't seen the bills. I mean, to Chris, and, you know.
Well, because they have seen the bills, and that's what's happening. And so these applicants are paying.
It becomes very onerous for them.
It does. It does. Because I don't know why steer has to go to all of that.
If there are questions, and there's going to be questions on the applications that you saw the other night, for sure. There's a lot of wetlands and the RISD permits.
But if DEM has approved it, then why do we have to analyze it again? If DEM says yes,
I don't have an issue with Steer reviewing the report, but going to the meetings and making another analysis when it has nothing to do with us. The license is issued by DEM.
Chris, I'm not aware of that. I really have not seen the bills. I'm not sure.
I'm not going to take the liberty of naming entities tonight, but there are some of them that are pretty staggering numbers that were charged by this town to the applicant on top of what their normal planning fee was. So I don't have an issue if you want your engineering firm to look at plans that have come through DEM, but there's no way that we should be duplicating that effort at all.
I'm not aware of the meetings and what the particular applications
Well, I think the
were.
planner should be in more control of this.
So I agree, and that's
I
what's
think
in my
the
memo.
planner should
We have a
say-
voluntary board who does not have purchasing authority in this town, and it needs, anytime we're dictating to a firm that's going to charge money to a resident of this town or an applicant in this town, it needs to be controlled by the contract that we have with that firm. The planning board do great work. I'm not diminishing the work that they do. I think you guys do fabulous work. But it does become overbearing and overexpensive for some of these applicants to do things. There was a review for a lot line change that really didn't even need to be done. It had nothing to do with the planning board, but yet,
It does have something to do with it.
well, I disagree. But
Well, if the checklist is being properly scrutinized and signed off on, that's one thing, but they're not. Many times we have to do that to make sure. We have to take a set of plans and check I'm not sure on the RIDEM or the other RIPD's meetings. I've never seen the bills in my,
there are a ton of SWIFT reports that our steer is reviewing that should not be done.
So why are they doing them? Like,
Because
who's,
they're directed to do it.
By the planning
by
board.
the planning board?
part of the review.
So is it part of like our ordinance? Is it atypical to other towns do this?
Yes.
No, it's not.
The consulting engineer, because we didn't have one, it goes way back.
We have an engineer in town, first of all. So,
He is overburdened, I have to
well,
say.
that's not your call to do that, though. There are a lot of things that our engineer in town can do.
You just happen to be here and you feel like you're being attacked, and I'm sorry.
No, I'm not.
All right.
Believe me, I think the planning board does
Right.
wonderful work when they,
So I think,
But I think, Denise, with all due respect, I think that developers don't like to be, they come and they give you all the complaints and we're the bad guys.
but developers aren't complaining to me. It came from administration
Okay.
that the bills are
And I
staggering.
can't talk about the bills because I don't see the bills.
And
well, you should see the bills.
I heard some of the bills.
So can I suggest perhaps that, and I'm not in as deep with this as some of the other members are because they're liaisons and the like, or have been dealing with it for a while, but would it make sense for, Chris, you to sit down with Stu, Rosemary, and just kind of go through some examples to kind of give a perspective, get a sense, and get some feedback, and then see how we can move forward with that specific issue.
I will, but they still need to have their fees adopted. I mean, it's.
Right. No, I'm not saying hold off
No.
on fees.
We voted on those fees last
Right.
year and they've been held up.
Right.
So why can't the
We lost
planner,
money.
when you do have this meeting, why can't the planner be the one that says, because that's what we pay her for, she's educated, or him, because we're not gonna have a planner. Why can't the planner say, yes, Stan needs to go out on this?
If, no due respect, if a planner is well-versed in the land use aspect of the job, the planner could do it.
Okay.
So, but thank you for the input on.
Yeah,
the
and maybe
bills.
you should look at the bills, because I think you would probably be shocked. Because I saw a few of them and I was a little bit taken aback by what these developers were paying, besides what they were already paying the engineer to do. And then our engineer was charging for the same thing.
We're correcting their engineers too, when we see it, just when we get a development
Right.
plan.
Right, but maybe if you guys got together and you looked at the bills, you might understand what Chris's concern is.
If it's brought to our attention. Thank you.
But we can approve.
You can approve those
Yeah.
fees.
You need to open a public hearing.
Yeah, I know. I did have, now, Steer contract's gonna come up.
So we put them on a 3-month extension because
Okay.
the contract did end at the end of April. So, and I am having a meeting with them this week
Okay, because they should also be aware that we're
Oh, they're well
concerned.
aware of it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Any comments or concerns from the audience? It's different than the last one. Any comments or concerns from the audience? This is the way it normally goes. All right, I'll close the hearing.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Chris, so I know we had these in abeyance for a while.
They have been.
We're looking at this as fiscal years 21 and 23. So 21 would have been last year, correct? And then going forward through 23 might, but we're not expecting folks, we're not looking back. Yeah, right,
No,
okay,
yeah, this
okay.
would only
This
be
is only
this
looking
day
forward,
forward.
okay.
This date forward.
Yep.
Any questions from any of the
Yeah,
councilors?
I have a
Donna?
couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Is there any reason why we waited a whole year for this? Am I quite,
No, I don't know why it waited a whole year, but,
so we lost all this,
no, this money's been collected.
No. We've been charging people. This is just a different,
these fees, these new
These
fees?
fees that were prior, not the ones that,
the change fees, no.
the earlier fees. And if you look, most of them haven't changed.
Well, some of them have, and I was just wondering why,
I don't remember that. There's been reasons, though. I think,
I remember looking at something like this last year and like, then nothing was done about it.
no, because we didn't approve it because we sent it back to the planning board for revision, I think. Yeah, I think. No?
I don't know. Seems like a whole year of maybe increased fees we lost. But, all right.
The planning board reviewed the fees approximately a year ago.
This, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I just have a question, like, for 2019-20, final plan, no new road, $200, and then it goes down to $150. Is it random, or is it, I mean,
I didn't create the fee schedule. This is from the planning board. I did not modify their fee schedule at all.
because some of them go up and some of them go down, and I don't understand.
My understanding of what they do, I could be wrong, and maybe Rosemary, if
She's still
they review what is common practice
Other
in
towns.
surrounding towns and what other communities do, and we sort of want to be in that ballpark, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's, I'm sorry. The former chairman did a study on surrounding communities, and they are within that range.
Oh, is that, okay, that's what you
And it
did.
was submitted, it is the same.
I think it was held up a little because the planner was reviewing it also.
No.
There's a number of different reviews.
No,
we're
the
It
taking.
didn't even come up to you. It hadn't been on. So I think it was just, maybe it fell through the cracks, I don't know.
I do
But
remember getting it, though. I
Yeah.
do remember seeing it.
Yeah, and I think the planner was, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
maybe it was in your backup, and it was,
I think the planner was reviewing it
and it's the
at
same
some point
figures
and
as-
it never came
I
back.
don't change the figures.
What?
I didn't change the
No,
figures.
it's the same, it's,
Yeah, they are mostly the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only the ones at the end are different.
I don't know, I just don't
Section
understand why
residence
nothing
area
was
went
done.
down, reinstatement of the application went up, amended final plan went down.
It's not much of a difference.
no.
Most of the things are the same time. Sorry.
All right,
No,
so-
that's okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So are we on stair engineering
No,
now, or we're still on the fees?
it's all about
It
the
was-
fees.
It was still in the fees, so what I need to do is ask for a vote,
A motion or?
a motion,
I'll make
a vote.
motion that we
This is when I start getting
approve
tired.
the planning board fee schedule.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Discussion and possible vote on proposed charter amendments.
No, you also have escrow fees.
Oh, that
I'm
was,
sorry, escrow fees.
Yep, that's like 2 pages
Is it
after that,
here?
I believe.
Could that have been one motion?
Yeah, couldn't that, I thought.
Well, when your motion just said planning board fees.
make a motion, we approve the escrow fees before us?
Second.
It's at the end.
All right.
Motion's been made in second.
The
The escrow fees, Donna.
escrow fee,
schedule.
was that what you were discussing with
ESCO schedule.
The letter?
Yep.
My-
But the fee schedule didn't change, it's still their fee schedule.
I get what you're saying, Chris, but I think it's important to keep the chair involved so that they understand what the fees are. I think there's a disconnect here. I think you're right about the education of having Rosemary and Stu look at this. I really feel that they don't know. So I'm just thinking that I don't have an issue with the planner and you making sure that people aren't double billed and that sort of thing. I just think the chair should be a part of that so that they know what's going on. I think it's important.
The chairman of the planning board.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
And there's also an appeal to the town council if anybody didn't
Right.
like any decision we made.
Right.
so.
All right.
So we have a motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the ESCO. All those in favor? Okay, now I can go on. Discussion and possible vote on proposed charter amendments regarding personnel changes in the Personnel Board, and discussion and approval for adoption of the final ballot question to forward to the Board of Canvass. Mike, are you going?
Yeah, Madam President, then I'll defer to our solicitor for more detail. So this is the work of the FTR and Personnel Charter Changes Subcommittee of the Council. Specifically, this is related only to the personnel aspects. And in general, what we are suggesting here is that right now in the charter, in most of the department heads, there are some very specific criteria contained within the charter that, were put in there with good intention, but, as things progress, as best practices change, it holds us to that charter language, which may not allow us to get the best candidates for some of those, and doesn't always recognize the import of looking at people from within who may not always meet the exact qualifications. So the biggest change you'll see in that regard is with the Department of Public Works head, police chief, fire chief, and I think town administrator. You'll see us moving that off the charter with the intent of creating an ordinance, I believe it was, correct, that would address those, and those ordinances can be updated more frequently as needed. The other piece is it moves the hiring process from the Personnel Board to the Town Administrator for full and part, and this is on the next to last page, full and part, for temporary, seasonal, and acting employees to the Town Administrator as long as the appointment does not exceed 180 calendar days, and if it has to be extended beyond that for 90-day periods, that would come before the Town Council. And this is intended really to get at some of those seasonal aspects, such as lifeguards, recreation folks, and the like, that you really need to act on quickly and try to get the folk, oftentimes these are college students who don't think ahead about applying for jobs for the summer, and so it helps the town administrator expedite that process. And then you'll see the two questions, and I'll just read those real quick, that we're suggesting to put on the ballot for this. The first would be, actually it's one question, I'm sorry. Where's this first one then? You're right.
Right here.
Yep, I got it. So, question one, shall various cited articles of the Home Rule Charter be amended to allow for the town council to determine and set additional educational job experience or other requirements for the hiring of the police chief, fire chief, and director of public works, not inconsistent with minimum qualifications as set forth in the charter? And then the explanation is what I just described. Mike, that doesn't include the town administrator in that. Yeah, so that would need to be amended to include the town administrator. And then the second question on the next to the last page, shall the charter section related to the powers and duties of the Personnel Board be amended to retain its role in the review and hiring of full and part-time employees and allow the town administrator to hire seasonal, temporary, and appointed persons in an acting capacity for a limited period of 180 days? And I explained that as well.
At this time, I'd like to open the floor for comments, open the public hearing. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim Camara, Crandall Road, Chairman of the Personnel Board. I'm sorry to be here tonight because this hit us as a board with a left hook. We had no pre-knowledge that any type of change was in the works for the hiring practice. Our role as a personnel board, okay, is to have the best interests of the town at heart, okay? We vet, we interview all the best candidates that apply for these positions to the best of our ability, and recommend to the town administrator, to the council, and to the department heads, those people we feel would be a good fit for the town, who have the qualifications, the best qualifications for that position. All right, with that being said, we serve as a buffer for the town. We have a consistent practice on how people have to apply for employment in the town of Tiverton, all right, which can be defended in court. It protects the town from any lawsuits. It protects you as council members from being sued individually if somebody files a discrimination complaint or whatever. It serves as a buffer for everybody involved, okay? As far as streamlining the process, I've been on the board over 20 years. I got another member of our board who's been on probably 12 years, another one 8 years, a couple new ones we just added. We got a very diverse board. We have a retired superintendent of schools. We have a administrator from the medical field who does hiring and firing. I personally have done a lot of hiring and firing in my previous career for a defense contractor. And collectively, we provide a service which we take very seriously, okay, for the town and for the council, of giving you the best candidates that we can. As far as the recreation, to Mr. Burke's comments about seasonal help, to my knowledge, we've never had a problem. We turn everything around probably within 5 to 10 days of the postings being closed and getting the list of the applicants, okay? We work with the recreation department. There's certain things with the recreation department that we can't control, which is the application process as far as the lifeguards go, for an instance. I understand by talking to the chairman this evening that the state is behind in getting lifeguards certified. That's something we can't control. What we do, if somebody communicates with us, we will take those applicants and we will review them probably within 48 hours, if not, or 72 hours, and we'll refer them right over to the Recreation Committee. There's minimal time wasted, because we, like, again, when it comes to the opening up the beaches, I think it's what, at the end of the school year, July 1st we start? We try to move as quickly as we can. The entire personnel board opposed this particular change, okay, on the provide to the town or to the is invaluable. If you, then you're, right now, we may be very comfortable and trustworthy with the present town administrator right now. About his or her his credibility, not her, but anyway, I'm going to change his handle. But anyway, where was I going with this? Anyway, as a town administrator, does a wonderful job. Town administrator sitting there, and that particular administrator may be a weak person who's going to succumb to outside pressures, okay, favoritism. By having the personnel board involved in this, we're weeding all of that stuff out, we're eliminating it. Because we're non-political, non-biased, we're consistent in the approach that we do. Some of you know me, some of you don't, okay? Denise has been on quite a while. I think Mr. Brooke, I've met him a couple of times. Mr. Edwards, Ms. Janick, and Ms. Cook. I am who I am, all right? We speak very seriously about there from a lawsuit, whatever.
Jim,
But
the
reach out to the commissions and the boards and get some feedback from the committee.
Jim, the problem with the charter is it's too confining. And we've had applicants in the past, I've been doing this for 10 years.
I'm sure you have.
Well, you know that.
I know.
Who've been very highly qualified, had good experience, but they didn't meet unless it goes out to vote. That's why Michael and his committee put this together, because the qualification as the years go by, and it's much easier for the town to do ordinances than to have a charter change. So that's why, and I've been hearing this for 10 years from different administrators, that the charter is too constraining, that in some particular cases, it's not necessarily what we need, or the best candidate does not follow what the charter is requiring. And then, knowing the personnel board, because I've dealt with you on several occasions, and you do a wonderful job, but sometimes applicants are not interviewed because they're not meeting these qualifications. But after looking into them a little bit, they would have been very noteworthy to interview and say, okay, you might not have this one thing, but what is your experience? Why do you think you want the job? So that's why, and I'm not speaking for Mike, but I've been hearing these complaints for 10 years now. So that's why that charter change. As far as the summer help, is Chris in the Recreation Department's having a lot of problems hiring because there's no applicants. So they wanted to just take those applicants and hire them. Therefore, simple jobs. Therefore, the recreation people that are helping with the kids. Therefore, the lifeguards, and right, you do meet, but sometimes we lose applicants because everyone's looking for lifeguard, and Portsmouth hired it in a day. So that's why Chris wanted the ability to do that, which I saw a good reason. I saw a good reason for that.
Just two follow-up points, Denise, okay? As far as the season will go, the high school kids, it's mostly high school kids that we hire for recreation, okay? They know that those applications historically come in the end of May into the first part of June, okay? And there's usually that last-minute rush to get everybody through. When we get anywhere from 14 to 20 students who want to work, again, we turn that right away, but we can't control them submitting their application in. That's number one. Number two, by skipping the hiring process, because and the way we look at it is that whether it's seasonal, 180 days or less, you're collecting a check for the town of Tiverton. You're an employee, whether you're seasonal, part-time, whatever, you're working for the town of Tiverton. My point here, okay, is the fact that with the hiring process that we have, it's consistent and it's open to everybody that applies, regardless of the position, how many hours it's going to be, seasonal, full-time, part-time, whatever. Acting, it's been my experience that the only acting positions that we have, okay, usually come either through the fire department or through the police department. If somebody's retiring, gets sick, it's usually, there's a structure there that might go from the chief to the captain or deputy chief. He or she will be the acting. That doesn't affect us at all. Same thing if somebody's appointed to look at DPW or one of these other departments.
Sometimes applicants are excluded because they don't meet all the
Right,
charter.
but I can tell you this much from experience. In today's atmosphere, it's getting harder and harder to find good qualified applicants. And, looking at some of those other changes that you just put forward, like for the fire chief, the DPW, and the police chief, we've eliminated the educational requirement. You have to have an education to do this job. We want to have a 21st century police chief, fire chief, whatever. And when you apply for that, and when you take it, when you remove that from the charter, you're opening up the process to every
So
patrolman.
let me just step in, Jim. And I appreciate everything you guys do, and I'm listening to what you're saying, but let's talk about the first part, about the modifications to, proposed modifications to qualifications for the chiefs and DPW, without getting into each one of them. The intent here is that it's moved from the charter, which, as you know, is a document that, if it's revised every
So many years.
10 years, we're lucky. And I think you would agree that as time goes on, what you want from people in those positions may increase in terms of who you're looking for, or they may modify in a different way. What the intent here is to move those components into ordinances, which can then be adjusted as the climate changes, so to speak, much more easily, much more frequently, so that the personnel board can have a much bigger say in, you're looking at a pool of applicants for the police department, and you're finding, let's say it does require 5 years of experience for, maybe you're hiring for a lieutenant, although I know they're going to come up through the ranks probably, but let's just say, and you're not finding anybody. So you can come to the council and say, look, this is really not working, and we have, 3 positions, and we don't have that many lieutenants, but 3 positions open. What can we do? Can we look at the ordinance? So in that regard, we can then take a look. It'll take us 2 months or so to adjust that ordinance if we decide we want to, based on your input. But if you come to us and say, this charter language is really hampering us and hamstringing us, we can do what we are doing here, but we're lucky if that's done every 10 years or so. So I think that's the rationale for that piece.
When it comes to the piece with the police chief, the fire chief, DPW, I didn't come here to try to change anybody's mind with the recommendations you're making. Okay, I come here because of the seasonal hiring process, the hiring process in general, to make sure it's consistent and fair and open to everybody. That's all I'm saying here. Do I get a little passionate? Yes, I do.
That's okay. That's
Because we
okay.
wanna-
That's okay.
I just have a question. You said that the personnel board, that all of you disagreed.
Oh, yes.
Did you have a vote? Did you have a meeting where you voted that you all disagree with
We
it?
put this
Was
under
there
general,
dis-
we put this under comment, general discussion after we had a meeting last Wednesday.
Okay.
When we post our meetings, general business. This is what's coming up,
Okay, I was just
all
wondering.
right? It's nothing that had to be, posted as a meeting special for this.
Right, I just
We
wondered.
kind of like captured it that way. That's all I'm saying. I can't stress enough that with the changes, at least with the seasonal one, you have control of it, fine, we do what we have to do. But again, I just want the council to know that we serve, again, as a buffer for the town and a buffer for each council member from being personal liable, because it's happened in the past. And I'm listening to the meeting tonight, because I don't normally come to these meetings, okay? And I'm listening to the comments from other committees, and the one thing that I picked up, maybe because I'm a little sensitive to it, is the fact that there seemed to be a lack of communication with some of the ordinances or recommendations coming from the people who have a vested interest in it, or a commission or a board on it. All I'm saying is that reach out to us. People volunteer. We've got 10 or 11 open volunteer positions in this town, okay? We're having trouble getting people to volunteer. Include them.
So I will say
Include
that,
them.
using your examples, we've had numerous conversations with the Recreation Commission on
Right,
a number
right.
of topics, including what was before us tonight. I'm not sure who the liaison to the Personnel Board is.
I don't.
No, there is none? So we probably have to appoint a liaison to the Personnel.
Okay, and again, my only thing is that nobody reached out to me as the chairman. I was a little slighted by it, because, we've given over 20 years doing this, okay, all for the right reasons. We're the highest paid volunteer organization that the town's got. So my only point is reach out and somebody talk to us. You'd be surprised the depth that the committee has, and other committees in the town, for knowledge and everything.
This is somebody else.
So,
So I will take personal responsibility as the chair of that subcommittee and apologize to you.
Apology accepted. Again, the strength and the power from a continuous process for hiring all employees is priceless. That's all I'm going to say. And we're very fortunate to have Chris here. Like I said earlier, you know, he may not be here tomorrow. You may have somebody there who's a little weak, who's, you know, you pick up the paper, somebody's getting $10 for this, it's this one's nephew, you know, even if it's a beach thing.
Would you have any specific suggestions on the seasonal language that we have in there?
Leave it the way it is. To me, you don't even need it, because there's not a problem. It can't get done any faster until you get an applicant, other than maybe 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it
Chris,
is.
it was your concern.
Yeah, we've lost a number of employees, prospective employees that went to another community like that.
Oh, yeah, and part of that.
Because I can't get them to get to you fast enough for me to hire them.
Okay, and part of that reasoning over the years, and maybe it's changed, because I haven't talked to Stu or anything, was we were losing people because I think the lifeguards, the last time I knew, were getting paid $14.
Yeah, but Chris hasn't had the ability to grab them and bring them in and interview them because they have to wait for a personnel board meeting. And these are
All I can tell you,
temporary.
is that if they apply, start advertising sooner, start advertising in February, March, and if they're interested, they're interested. That's all I'm gonna say. Other than that, we stand by whatever you just want to vote on tonight, okay?
Donna thought we were already doing that.
What was that?
You already thought that Chris was.
This one here for the part-time personnel, this was decided a while ago. We've been doing this,
Not number one, we're talking,
general provisions.
so what we've done, Donna, is in the charter, these are kind of lumped together, so we separated out the full-time and part-time personnel, which stays with the Personnel Board. It's the temporary, seasonal, and acting employees that we were pulling out to hand to the town administrator to do.
But we were already doing this. When I was on the council, there was a problem. And we had decided that the town administrator could do these part-time.
She is right.
I am right.
Yeah, but the charter doesn't say that. The charter doesn't allow it.
Oh, well, we were doing it.
Well, I follow the charter, so.
I'm not aware of the town administrator hiring part-time.
You're not talking, you're not.
Sorry.
But we had, this was something that we were already doing. I'm just saying.
We discussed it.
I'm not aware of it.
If we were doing it, maybe we should not have been.
I just remember saying that we should look at it. I don't remember saying
You
we
know,
do it.
you all have a hard job to do, okay? You couldn't pay me to do what you're doing. But I can tell you, over the last 2 years, the application pool that we receive is sad.
Well, that's everyone.
It's sad. It's all over, okay? And
What?
even last week when we were interviewing for a part-time worker for the DPW, okay? We were supposed to have something like 12 interviews. We ended up with 5, and of the 5, okay, only 3 people called back and actually called in for the interview. And there's no response. Nobody wants to work. But anyway, that's another story for another time.
All right,
I'm
thank
done
you.
talking, said what I had to say.
Thank you.
Just remember, the hiring process, in our opinion, and I understand what you're getting at, okay? Again, we safeguard, we serve as a buffer for the town and the council members through the whole process. All right? Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
I'll get
Jim.
out of your hair, so to speak.
I don't have any.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Councilors?
Excuse me?
Any comments from the council?
Do you want me to go through these or no?
Go through
Any of
them
these?
again?
No, I don't know. I mean, I want to make it very clear that the education requirements are still in the charter for the directors, the department heads, town administrator, the police department. There are still minimum qualifications.
Right.
For instance, town administrator still has to have a 5 years administrative experience, or bachelor's degree with 5 years administrative experience or equivalent experience at such other qualifications as determined by the town council. So, for instance, say you're in a budget crisis and you're you want to hire a town administrator who has excellent knowledge about budgets and budgeting and whatnot, you can then add that as a qualification in an ordinance more quickly than you could amend the charter. So it allows you, gives flexibility to change those minimum qualifications. The police chief is the same thing. We did not take away any educational requirements. Department of Public Works, it has to be an engineer, preferably with a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university, and any other qualifications as set by the town council by ordinance. So it does shift some of additional qualifications to the council, allowing them to put it in an ordinance, but it does keep minimum qualifications in the charter. They're just not so onerous. For instance, one of the things that we had, as you know, the fire chief, the previous fire chief, there was a requirement that the fire chief be EMTC certified or whatever, EMT, have an EMT.
An associate's.
And an associate's degree, right? We were violating the charter.
That's right.
But Bruce had.
But Bruce had lots of experience.
So much experience, he was yeah.
So,
But he had to go for his associate's degree.
exactly, we required him to get his
Which
associate's degree
I don't
at
think
night.
was gonna help,
Exactly,
but-
so, in any event, so those type of things were, kind of pulled out, but there's still minimum qualifications for the department heads as to be appointed by the town administrator. As far as the personnel changes, full and part-time employees of the town still have to go through the personnel board. It's only seasonal and temporary employees to a maximum of 180 days can be appointed directly by the town administrator. And he or she can set up a process how they hire that. And we also update the discrimination clause that, we cannot discriminate on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, or identity, disability, race, creed, or native or ancestral ordinance. And again, I just want to emphasize the hiring of full and part-time personnel shall be done through the personnel board. Clearly, that did not change. So it's just kind of more of an update, and when we get to the ballot questions, if you do approve this, we need to add amended.
Town administrator.
To add the town administrator to ballot question 1.
Yeah. Any questions from the council, any discussion?
No, I don't,
Connie.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to make it sort of a policy to respect the different boards and the chairs we sort of get caught up in things, but I think it would be nice that if we're going to do something, anything to do with a change with that particular board, that the chair at least be notified. I think it's respectful. So, I'm sorry, Jim, that happened.
We normally have them participate, but they're here at the meeting.
If they want to participate, the thing is, they should at least get an email from the clerk. This is what we're going to be doing, just a heads up, that sort of thing. I think it'd be more respectful. Thank you.
That is, not speaking on behalf of the council, that is a fair criticism, but I assure you that all these meetings were posted. They were all open meetings. Anybody could have checked the agenda to come to these meetings.
We've been talking about this for years.
We've been working on this for more than a year and a half, and as you know, Ms. Cook, this was actually one of your initiatives
No,
to change these.
I get that, but just respectfully, they should be emailed, not find from some posting or, it's just my opinion. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any discussion regarding, because I'm going to call for a motion?
So, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to move forward the personnel changes related to question 1, using the language of the explanation of the ballot question as is written before us, with the modification amendment that it includes the town administrator before police chief, so it would read, or other requirements for the hiring of the town administrator, comma, police chief, and then on down the rest of those positions.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? For, against? Abstain?
Abstain.
And Madam President, I'd like to move forward to the ballot question, the amendments to the charter for question number 2, which relates to the seasonal and acting employees, using the explanation of the ballot question that is before us. Shall the charter section related to the powers and duties of the Personnel Board be amended to retain its role in the review and hiring of full and part-time employees and allow the town administrator to hire seasonal, temporary, and appointed persons in an acting capacity for a limited period of 180 days?
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion been made and second. Any further discussion?
So we've missed a number of candidates, do you believe, Mr. Carter?
We've had them pilfered right out of our fingers. Yeah.
We're
Stu,
talking,
how many people have we lost that we could have? At least.
we're talking the seasonal people.
Yeah, the seasonal, it's all like the lifeguards and things.
DPW seasonal, rec seasonal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4. Against? Donna, abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you.
I have a question.
What?
Is the treasurer here for item 9N?
She's
Yeah,
here.
she's right there.
She's here.
Yeah, I didn't know she was here. She was hiding in the clerk's office.
No, I
saw her.
She's right there.
been here all along.
Yeah.
She's right there.
Yeah, she was sitting back.
Denise, wave.
What are you here for, Denise? So are you here for 9N?
But there's a whole bunch of people here for other things, too. The public.
She could be out of here in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I know, but I've got a lot.
I'll make the motion that we move 9N.
Yeah, but see, I've got the public here for water licensing.
Yeah, I
I don't think we should move people. But it's up to you if you want to make the motion.
Can I just make a clarification on the previous motion? So the council adopting the proposed charter amendments to be referred, and the question to be referred to the Board of Canvassers for certification,
Yes.
and they'll take the following steps
Yes.
to make sure it gets in the ballot.
Yes.
So that's it.
No, I'm just saying there's a lot of people, like Bruce Cox is here. I think there's a lot of people here. All right.
Let it go.
Not that I have anything against you, Denise, but acknowledge and resignations, retirements, David Paul from Town Farm Renovation Committee effective May 18th, 2022. Yes. I'd like a motion, please.
I move we accept.
Besides Chris's. I don't know why he's making
I
motions.
move we accept David Paul's resignation from the Town Farm Renovation Committee effective May 18th of 2022 with regret.
And thank you
And
for
thank you.
all his services. This isn't the only committee he's been on. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? William R. Silvia, K-9 Memorial. Oh, K-9 Memorial Park.
You've been waiting patiently.
One of the people that said, yes, I'm waiting here. Regarding special event permit for second annual K-9 Memorial Park 5K Run Walk event, July 4th, 2022, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Start and finish at the Boathouse Restaurant. You've had this before?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you want to, so where's the start and the finish?
It's going to be on Boathouse property. It runs along through Poplar Drive and down Riverside Ave, Riverside Drive.
And the police chief knows about it? Okay. The only thing I want to say for the future,
Sure.
I saw this advertisement about 2 months ago at different places in Fall River.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't think we ever approved this.
Right.
So you probably didn't know that it had to be approved.
Correct.
But I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know we were having that.
No, in the future, we'll adjust.
Yeah,
We'll-
thank you.
I
A
apologize.
lot of people don't know, but it was just funny. I was at a sub shop and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know we were having that.
May it have been Marzilli's?
Yeah, it was
All right.
Marzilli's, yes. So any questions?
No, I know
He
that-
answered mine last year when he first came before us, so thank you.
So this is the second
This is the
annual.
second one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We're looking to continue it in Tiverton as a tradition.
I'm early.
All right, well, the only, is sometimes a lot of people want the same dates, So, and we limit it if it gets too congested
Right.
in a certain area. So, yeah, come early next time.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the second annual K9 SK Road Race Walk to be held on June 4th, right?
Yep.
2022.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion been made and second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Good luck.
Thank you, Council.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Have
night.
to yell like Lou down at the boathouse, don't you?
You
You
too.
too. Thanks for your patience.
Bruce Thompson. Is Bruce here?
This is the fourth time.
This is the fourth time, too. And we did notify him, right, Jeannie?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to continue.
Is he not here?
No, I just don't think, I don't think,
So can I make a motion to continue this?
I think we should just table it indefinitely, like Mike said, unless they, because if he doesn't come back with a request, table it until we see it as a formal request again, would be
Yeah.
what I think.
When he's interested enough to show up?
Yeah, so I guess I'm making that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made in second. All those in favor? Did you vote?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Councilor Janick, discussion and possible vote to appoint town council representative to the school building committee.
So the school has a building committee where they meet and discuss improvements in building and whatnot for the schools. And we have a wonderful opportunity where we can get reimbursed for a large portion of what we have done in the schools. So then we put that into a fund and can kind of self-perpetuate and do more changes and more building. Now, RIDE really wants us to show a unified front, town council, school committee, and various members of the community on the committee. We listened to the RIDE discussion. We all agreed that was a great thing to do, but we've never formally appointed anyone from the council. And I know they had a meeting within the last month, I believe. Jerry, last month, you had a meeting?
Earlier this month.
There's been a couple.
But the most recent one, the RIDE representative did mention that he was disappointed that we did not have a town council present. So, and I know we've talked about it informally, we've just never.
Well, I think they appointed me at some point, the school committee, correct? And then I asked not to be on it.
So we never made the, so if you want me to give you a little bit of a.
Well, I know that Joe Perry's also on it, but he's not
Right.
as a town council member.
So
Jerry Larkin, 232 Stony Hollow Road, representing myself, not the school committee. But the way this, we appointed the committee originally in February, then we sort of reappointed it to comport with some processes, and we had always designated 2 positions were available for the town council. Joe specifically wanted to be on it, but he specifically wanted to not be as a representative of the town council.
Well, that's kind of difficult when you're a town councilor and.
I'm just telling you what
Yeah.
he.
I'm a town councilor no matter what committee I'm on. It doesn't matter. Really, well, I'm being seen as a town councilor.
That's, I think, the key point is that any of us get seen, even though I just made the statement I made, I'm going to be seen
Yeah,
as
right.
representing
Right.
the school committee. So, I mean, you could appoint him as your member, but I don't think he probably wants to be. I'm just guessing. But what we really would like is to have at least 2 members from the town council. So.
Would anyone like to be on it?
I would love to be on it. However, my husband's on it. I don't know that I'm the best choice. If that's a conflict. But I think we have just such a great opportunity to have
There have been
school
couple-
and count,
Yeah, there have been couples that have served on, at least to my memory, the budget committee and other things, so I don't think that you're married is necessarily a
Does anyone
obstacle.
else would like to be on it? Besides Deb, anyone else?
I can see my irons in the fire.
I mean, if need be, again, I have a lot of irons in the fire too, so it's not anything about the committee itself, it's,
I think we have to face the fact that there's about 50 people that do most of everything in this town, and, you know.
I'd like to do it, but
how frequently do you see?
So let me, yeah, so.
Oh, it's during the day?
Let me give you a little bit of information about it. So one is that you can zoom in, so you're not kind of bound by open meetings laws in that regard. We do post the meetings, and that's worked pretty efficiently. Huh?
You can't do that.
So you're saying that your members of this building committee can attend by Zoom electronically?
We were told that that was by our lawyer, and I can check with him.
I think he's wrong.
I think he's wrong. We can't do that.
If you post your meetings on the Secretary of State website and you are recognized as a public body, you must attend in person.
Yeah.
So the exception for members of a public body to attend electronically is expired with the executive.
No, I understand that part, but.
This would be a public body, like a subcommittee.
So we were told that actually even school committee members could attend the meeting, they can't vote.
Attend what meeting? Your meeting? School committee meetings?
And then we're not allowing that, and nobody has done that, but the advice.
I'm not your lawyer, but I have some grave concerns about that.
Okay.
Not the school
Wow.
committee meeting, the school building meeting.
Well, we've even been told that.
No, you're talking about the school regular meeting.
Yeah, I'm telling you what our attorney has told us, and we probably don't need to resolve that tonight. But I will ask him if you feel like that's not.
This
So-
night's been too long.
Right. So, yeah, you know, that's really getting off on a tangent. So but for this committee, to date, we have allowed Zoom, and if that's something we're not allowed to be doing, or not supposed to be doing, then we can.
Yeah, I would check
Change
in
that.
that, Jeff.
Of course, no call, no foul. If nobody complains, it's not a
No,
problem.
not with
Well,
that.
But it could
One does
jeopardize
not
any
want to
decisions
intentionally set oneself up to be
Well, it could
filed
jeopardize any
on.
decisions that it makes.
Yeah, no, you don't want to, as I said, you do not.
But
we do not
otherwise,
wanna
Jerry,
do it.
these are during the day?
These are during the day.
Like what time during the day?
I think we usually start at 4:30.
Oh, 4:30?
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
tea time.
It's early, but it's not usually early.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Do you have a schedule for it? I'm just trying to think of
So
everything.
we usually meet once a month, and it's usually on the second Tuesday, because it sort of goes with the same
Which is gonna.
time as our usual.
Second Tuesday, no, Stu, you're second Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
But you're at 6:30.
and my agenda meeting is the
And they
first
typically go about an hour.
Tuesday. The first and
So I will, why don't you have me be one of the two if we're okay with that? And we might have to revisit it at some point, just.
And that's okay that I'm on it and my spouse is on it. Okay.
All right, so,
Husband and wife team on the
would
board?
someone like to make a motion to appoint Councilor Burke and Councilor Janick to the school building committee? Anyone like?
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion been made second. All those in favor? Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, it's just another thing he's doing on Tuesday. Town administrator.
Can you email us like the
Yeah, I'll tell them.
information?
notification.
Thank you.
Town administrator / Harbor Commission, discussion and possible vote. 2, Harbor Commission Chair Bruce Cox, he's still here, request to start the process to amend Harbor Ordinance to allow for paid dinghy tie-ups at Stonebridge Apartment Dock.
Good evening.
Leave
For the
it
record,
one
Bruce
second.
Cox, 35 Sunset View Drive, Tiverton here, Harbor Commission Chair. At your previous meeting, you had proposed by Rick Rogers, who'd been involved on the waterfront with regards to the dock system there. And there was a meeting between Mr. Rogers, the administrator, Dave Stewart, on our committee about the setting up a system of having dinghy tie-up spots that would be paid for by members of the public in conjunction with a parking spot that is up behind the Red Dory and the other office building there. Mr. Rogers went and measured it and identified a certain number of spots could be made available there. And the proposal is to have, by lottery, up to 12 spots. These are tie-up spots for dinghies, small boats. The rules that were proposed said 13 feet. The commission would like it to be 12 feet for the express reason that a 13-foot Boston whaler is big and beamy and wide and takes up a lot of space. A 12-foot whaler doesn't exist. There are smaller ones, but they are a little narrower. And these would be boats on tethers not tied up alongside of the boat, the dock. These tethers are called painters, about 8 feet long, so they'd be nesting like, think of a bunch of ducks tethered out, if you would, on one section of the dock. That requires you to start the ordinance process. Councilor Cook informed us of that process the other evening when we were meeting. So we said, let's try to get it on the agenda so we can see if we can get that ordinance amended to be able to do this, to charge these fees and start the process, because we're going to be learning as we're going a little bit with this. And so that's what the item C1 is all about.
Questions?
I have a question. So you're going to do a lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to do a lottery on an annual basis.
That's correct.
You're going to pull 12 primary permits. And
Correct.
15 alternates, let's call them.
15 alternates or 3 alternates for 15 spaces?
It says 12 spaces proposed, and I didn't know about alternates, but logic would dictate, you'd say, here's a lottery, draw X number, and
I see.
make
No.
sure people come forward. That's correct.
The number isn't
They may have already got it somewhere else.
Okay, I see that.
The quantity isn't what's driving my question. So it says here in B at the top, available space on dinghy dock will be permitted to town residents on an annual lottery basis. Okay. Then we get down to 3A, preference will be granted to Tiverton residents over all applicants.
That's correct.
That tells me then that you're going to take applications from.
Non-residents as well. I believe we have to, because.
Here I am, I'm pulling lottery tickets.
Right.
And the first 5 I pull are from Fall River.
You have to pull enough tickets. Our proposal is a 3-to-1 ratio favoring Tiverton, which is the same ratio as you have. You have to put them aside. That's correct. And then they become the subsect, if you will, or a parallel sect, so you do 3 Tiverton people, 1 non-Tiverton person.
I was just curious how it was going to, how you're going to deal with that in the event. Well, it's not
The
an
mechanics of it,
eventuality.
certainly.
It's almost guaranteed it's going to happen.
One would think, one would anticipate that, yes.
Or you put all the Tiverton into one bucket and the non-Tiverton in another
You
one
could do
and
that as
just
well. Exactly.
Tiverton that way.
Draw 3 out of this bucket, 1 out of that bucket.
3 from here, 1 from here.
Other
So
questions?
does this allow space also for the fire boat?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Dave Stewart, who's actually spearheading the dock effort there with the commission, spoke with the fire chief. Come on up, Dave.
I met with Greg, the interim fire chief, today, and he is thrilled with the idea. He has a 21-foot boat, whatever it is. It's going to make him much easier to get his stuff down there. He can park his rescue equipment along the side of the road, which is very difficult to do at Standish. He'll have a designated spot there. He said it's a dream come true. He's excited about it. And depending on how his boat factors in, we're going to start with 12 dinghies, and we may be able to have enough room to put in a few more, but the fireboat would be a really big asset for the town, and it would save the town $3,500 a year, which is nice. And the dinghies would be $300, so we get 12. So between the two of the things, you're bringing in close to $8,000. And on the east side, the west side of the floats would be for transient boats. And,
How about the harbor master's boat?
that's up for grabs. He really is very happy with it at Standish.
He doesn't have the equipment issue. That's part of the fire chief's issue, I would imagine, is that, you go down past Standish on a given week or weekend day, you'll oftentimes see a rig parked right at the driveway there. It's like, oh my God. Whereas at the bridge abutment, there's that big
No,
loop area that's perfect for.
Perfect. I mean, he said it couldn't be better, you know, because, I mean, you just look at Standish, then you have to go down those stairs to get there.
We always kind of planned for it to go there at some point anyway.
I
Pardon
think
me?
that was the thought process.
That was the
there.
thought
And the harbor
process.
master is a little concerned about security and space and such. So I think this is step one. Step two will be to convince them that this is a great place to be, and perhaps realign that budget item to another purpose. But that's the item C1 on your agenda. Obviously, C2, once again, goes right back to that area.
Madam President.
All right, any questions?
Yep.
Discussion?
So I appreciate, because when this was before us last time, there were concerns raised about how the permits would be issued. So I appreciate that you went back and revised it for the lottery system. But I think, Dave, you just mentioned it, which is, maybe I wasn't listening last time. You said the west side is for more transient?
Yeah, I would like to keep that open to generate some traffic. You know, people go to the restaurants, you go to the coffee
Yeah, okay.
shop, and, you know, we put it, you know, signage, 2-hour limit, that type of
And
thing.
that's just first come, first serve?
Exactly.
Gratis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gratis, and you'd have time limitation on it.
Okay.
You know, there'd be a limit to the size of the boat and the amount of time.
And so so let's say you do 2 hours. Who's going to monitor that? I know it's...
It's one of those things. Everybody, you know, all the time, you know, Newport has that, Bristol has it. It's you know, we're not going to have a cop down here. I mean, it's just kind of an honor system, and, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully, people will honor it.
They do that at Evelyn's too.
Yeah.
They dock there for a
Right,
minimum,
and,
well, a maximum.
You know, if you find somebody's there all the time and this and they're abusing it, you maybe say something, but,
So does this need to be put in proper form before we can put it before us as a potential ordinance? All right. So can I make a motion that we ask the town solicitor to work with the Harbor Commission to put this in proper form so we can have an ordinance before us as soon as possible, given that it's boating season? Yeah, I know, well, you have the reservoir, oh, you can't boat.
We'll take that for a ride.
Gives me a
We'll hide that deficiency.
You just don't bring him back till he's done.
We'll try to put it on the agenda for next time if it's,
Right.
but it's a couple of weeks, we'll see.
Yeah, it's still going to push it out a little bit, but...
Half the loaf is better than none.
That's a
let's
motion.
hope for
Yes, I
July
can.
4th, we're going to be.
Exactly.
All right, so that's a motion
In a second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Next. Bruce, you're up again.
Yes, going right back, obviously, to Stonebridge abutment dock. There's a concept in CRMC regulations called a marina perimeter, which is an area that when CRMC approves it and identifies your engineered perimeter, that you can do things within that without having to go back to them for every little detail. The reason this makes sense, and this is just a request for an RFP, a request for proposals from engineering firms, is how much would you charge to do a marina perimeter application for this area, to engineer it? And we'd have to work with the engineer, you know, to get a concept of what was being looked at. The reason for it would be simple. We have greater dexterity or nimbleness if we have the opportunity to acquire a float or a dock that may come to us either gratis or at a very reasonable price. The Bristol Yacht Club had 2 floats that they were giving away this spring, and unfortunately, Bristol beat us out. We were second. I went and pulled every string I had, and Bristol has a greater pull, and it's not surprising. But we needed, you know, this would have been something we would have had to do with coastal anyways. Now we'd be doing it in the right sequence. So this is just a cost. What's it going to cost? You know, the engineering could be $10,000, it could be $15,000, it could be $5,000. I don't know. It'd be what would an engineer think, what would work down there. So it's a step 1 in that direction.
Is there a scheme that you're looking for? I mean,
Well,
we're building our own Champlins, or?
Years ago, there was an additional dock. There was the dock that's there now. There used to be another dock closer to shore.
So years ago, there used to be a lot more docks.
Well, there used to be more. And there's potential to maybe do some things with that stone wall, maybe some kayak racks down the thing. But, you know, we just would like to know if there's a, you know, if what the parameters are, and then we can adapt to it.
Does CRMC have any kind of like pictures of what it used to look like?
I saw a picture a long time ago, and there were 2 docks there. There's the existing one, and then there was a smaller one in between the shore.
I remember somebody had a boat down there with 4 docks.
Well, maybe.
Four
You're
fingers.
older than I am.
No, I'm not. I've been in town longer than maybe, I don't know.
But I don't know. But I just think this would give us a plan that we could work towards.
Right.
And, you know, this really is kind of the last puzzle. We did the abutment, then we did the Grinnell's Beach, now we do the dinghy dock and all that, and really we've transferred from, you know, what it's a gas station to really a, you know, really nice.
Developing town center, that's what
Yeah,
we're doing.
I mean, it's really becoming a great little town center, right?
We'd have to find a funding source for it.
Well, the first step would be go out for an RFP and see what it costs.
Right,
I spoke to Renee Jones about it. She thought that they may be able to come up with some money.
So, do you guys have, like, particulars? That's, my first question is,
Who's
what
going to
would
help
you?
write the RFP?
Right, well, yeah, I don't, you know, I can help write one, but I don't know what it is you want in it.
If we, like Bruce said, if we could put more floats along the shoreline, you could put dinghies up, you could pull boats up on it.
Right, so, but the technical, so who's going to help write the technical aspects of the RFP for what we're asking for?
We can help.
We
Dave
could
and I.
certainly
Okay,
help.
all right.
You get a guy like Tom Principe up here, you know, you get a guy that works with marinas, there's a guy named Brendan Lund, who owns, you know, I mean, there's a guy, what we're asking
Builds it.
for is nothing, I mean, it's just developing, making better use of the space.
So is there a footprint, I guess, of, like, what kind of area are we looking at? Is there like a mapping of it, or is there?
Well, that's what.
We don't
that's
have
what-
that. That's what the RFP would work towards, is to develop a mapping, a
Yes.
perimeter, literally a perimeter of where we would
Yeah.
be able to work, what would make sense.
That's the help I'm gonna need.
Yeah, the depth-
I know you have moorings that are out in front of that, so.
Right, so there's a few, but
But that's what the engineer is gonna decide,
Exactly.
what our land is
Exactly.
there and what.
where the
Okay.
We
land
have
is,
to
who
define
owns
the
the
scope of
land,
work.
you know.
We have one piece of land that's right there by the abutment, that's actually owned by Dr. Kegwin. The wall is sort of falling in and that sort of thing, but, you know, where are his rights? What rights do we have to protect of his versus ours, that kind of thing.
You
You know,
can help
we don't
them.
find out the depth of water,
I'll,
what
you
we
know,
can do.
I'll try to help them, but
Yeah, so Chris will help.
Yeah, no, I mean. you
And
find
I'm sure you could
out
find
what we
other
can do.
volunteers that could.
everybody out of the basement.
You need a motion or not?
Yeah, I need a motion.
So I motion to have the town administrator work with the Harbor Commission on developing an RFP for engineering services to develop a marina perimeter permit from CRMC related to Stonebridge abutment dock area.
Second?
Second, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. And minute,
Rules and regulations.
And then the last one is the rules and regulations with the administrator.
So I did change it to be a lottery, not a
Right.
assignment. There's no renewals, there's everything you suggested last time, I took out.
And we opened it up to Rhode Island, all Rhode Island residents.
okay.
You know, like Bruce said, the lottery will reflect that, I guess, 3 and 1.
So
And every year they have to
You have to
reapply.
reapply every year.
Every year.
You have no
I think
guarantee.
that's best, so that somebody doesn't
Somebody
have
can
it
get
for their
locked in there
lifetime.
forever. Yeah, no, it's fair.
Like a Rhode Island.
It's
road
fair,
with a
yeah.
Low number plate.
Yeah. Hey.
Is it Rhode Island, or is it like Massachusetts too, or it's just Tiverton and Rhode Island?
I think you have
I
to
think
Rhode
it'd be-
Island.
I think it's Tiverton and Rhode Island.
And Rhode Island.
So this comes after the ordinance, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
In order to create the ordinance, you really need to know what the rules and
Right, right.
regulations are gonna look like.
right.
Any questions about the rules and regulations?
And that addresses that parking we want to do too?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Harbor master will tell them where it is.
did you see the rules and regulations?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we wrote them together. We all
All right, I
said
just
that.
want to make sure, okay. All right, I need a motion to, do you want a
So
motion?
just a quick question on the parking again. So these are trailers parked there,
Oh,
or
no,
just
just-
cars?
just
Or
cars, just
Vehicles,
cars.
vehicles, okay. And again, I think somebody had said at the last meeting how many spaces might be up there, I forget how many.
Well, Rick and I and some guys looked at, it. You could easily do probably 15 there.
Yeah,
Okay. So if I decide I'm gonna go walk around downtown, I don't have a boat, I'm gonna park up there, who's gonna keep me from doing that?
Gotta have a sticker.
Okay. Okay,
perfect.
And you'll get your sticker when you get your boat.
Right.
Okay.
okay. I'd
You get a
like,
sticker for the boat, you gotta get a sticker for the car.
Does the
like-
sticker say I'm a lottery winner?
Big pot of money.
You should.
You went to Foxwood.
I'd like to move approval of the dinghy dock rules and regulations. What was the language you want me, subject to the adoption of the harbor ordinances to allow for paid dinghy tie-ups.
I guess I'll second that.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
We're gonna do Stu, and then we'll bring Denise up, because then I think we kind of cleared the audience. Stu,
Hello there.
Recreation Commission to special possible vote. I gotta give it to you. You're really way in advance for this one. Vote regarding recreation event, trunk or treat event on October 29th, 2022 at the Ranger School from 4 to 8:30. You're like rushing the summer for me here.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, no shit.
Yeah. Are you gonna do Christmas next meeting?
Actually, we are working on
Yeah,
holidays.
you would be.
Yeah.
It's just like last year, no different?
Yeah, it is available at the schools. We communicated with the superintendent and the principal indicated it was available.
And have you secured it? Because last year, I know it wasn't there, it was at the high school, but you ran into that issue.
No, it ended up being at Ranger.
Was at Ranger last
No,
time.
but it was originally going to be at the
That's
high
right.
school. You
There was
thought you had it all secure.
And we did include the, I believe the high school principal in there as well, just to confirm there were no scheduling conflicts. So as far as everybody has informed us, it's clear and available, so we shouldn't have any problems.
Secured.
And secure, yes.
It was a good area for it, I have to give it to you.
It was, and something that we have talked about as a commission for the last couple of years that will occur in here, and you can actually see it in the request, is that there'll be a period of time where we open it for children with special needs where there's a bit of a sensory overload with trunk or treat, so we're going to build that into it. We felt it was important.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the event.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
There you go. All right, so I'd like a motion to bring forward 9N.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Treasurer?
We didn't hear you.
Request, she's been sitting down there the
Yeah.
whole night.
She even got up to go to the bathroom.
Request approval to transfer Hillside Cemetery perpetual care falling asleep on me.
I don't know how you do it.
We don't know how we do it either.
Just a brief history. So the town holds about, I think about 7 different small perpetual care accounts for various private, very old cemeteries in town. Most of them have small balances between $100 to, I think, $700. So Mr. Martin from the Historical Cemetery approached me about the Hillside Cemetery perpetual care account that we've had on the books since before the 70s. It's held in, I don't want to use the word trust, but it's held for the benefit of those 4 lots that are in the letter. He's on the board of the Hillside Cemetery, and
the secretary and the treasurer.
and they're a completely separate entity from the town, the Hillside Cemetery, which is across from Amicable Church. And they have their own board, their own bylaws, their own perpetual care funds. And he just asked me if I thought it would be possible to transfer these funds, since they are for 4 lots that are contained in that cemetery, to them. So I honestly didn't know if that was possible. I did a little research, and I was able to find the original, I shouldn't say the original, some documentation in a very old record-keeping book demonstrating when the deposits came in and who they're held for. I happened to, inside that book, find a letter from 2008 where a similar request was made to transfer the Lake Road Cemetery to Amicable Church. And I spoke with Mike Marcello, our solicitor, and he thought as long as the council approved, was aware of it, made sure that Hillside Cemetery maintained those funds for the benefit of those 4 lots, and the council approved it, thought it would be okay. So
But
that's
this dates back to the late 1800s. The cemetery was formed in 1872, but 3 of the people that bought these lots bought the lots without perpetual care. And somewhere along the line, they dropped a couple $100 at town hall, said, we should put this in trust fund, because still, there had been no perpetual care for them. Okay? So she ends up with 4 little tiny accounts that sit and earn a penny a month. That's all it is.
if that, seriously. I mean, the perpetual care is supposed to, the principal is not supposed to be touched, as I understand
That's
the state
correct.
law. And the only money that can be spent is the interest to take care of these lots.
So all we're doing is transferring it from the town to our accounts, and they're in a perpetual care account. So that's all it is.
Any questions?
No, it's just that they get 5 cents to spend.
I like that.
Come back every 5 years and you have $10 bills.
Yeah. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? There you go.
Very good, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Forward.
Good night.
Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Wow. Councilor Cook, discussion and possible vote on resolution in opposition to SB 2557 and HB 7829, translation services continued from 5/9/2022.
Right, a couple of meetings ago, this was on the agenda from, I don't know, that was one of the other, I don't know which, at this point, it's been so long, which city or town, but they took notice of another mandatory possible law. So I pulled it because frankly, if you're going to make it mandatory, you need to pay for it for eternity. And that's not what happens. If you think it's that important, then you need to pay for it and not have the towns and cities pay for it. So, whereas the Tiverton Town Council believes in the tenets of the open meetings laws of the state of Rhode Island and diligently seeks to comply with the requirements of the law, and whereas the Rhode Island Senate Bill S2557 and House Bill H7289 will create an extraordinary unfunded mandate by requiring upon request that translation services be provided by any public body subject to the provisions of the open meeting laws of the state of Rhode Island. Whereas the bill fails to recognize the large number of languages and dialects employed by citizens and non-citizens of the state and nation, that hundreds of large and small local public bodies would be required to be responsive to with no controlling criteria to avoid the risk of costly burdens of compliance, including but not limited to the cost of the translator and the cost of delays in governings to obtain a translator, without a consideration of whether the need is genuine, timely requested, or even initiated by a resident of the city, town, or state. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Tiverton opposes Senate Bill S2557 and House Bill 7829 as an excessive unfunded mandate being imposed on the cities and towns of the state of Rhode Island. Be it further resolved that the Tiverton Town Council urges the Rhode Island House of Representatives and Senate not to pass the respective bills, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to every Rhode Island municipality Tiverton's legislators and the governor requesting their support and opposition to this legislation, that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage.
So Donna, just one quick typo. In the second whereas, the House Bill number should be 7829.
That's what it,
No. It says 7289 in the second one, and that's a bill related to DCYF.
so it's 782.
782. It's right everywhere else.
Okay.
Except for there.
So that needs to be
7829.
Just make that amendment.
tweaked.
Yeah.
We just make that
The
amendment.
bit, okay.
It's a typo, because the other two are.
Typo.
correct, yeah. We'll just make that amendment.
Okay.
So, we're proposing that if a citizen comes in and wants a translator, we don't feel we need to.
Well, can't provide that. There's so many dialects, there's so many people that speak different languages, that you can't find someone. So is that going to hold up a meeting? Are you going to get sued because they can't participate? It can cause so many problems because it's not really clear as to how that's supposed to happen. But it's clear to me that, once again, if it's important enough that they feel they need to have this mandate, that they need to pay for it. That's what's clear to me. And over again, as we go on, the mandates from the state pay for some of it, and then eventually just don't pay for it at all.
So, excuse me, Donna. A couple things. One, this is fairly broadly written in that it has the cities, towns develop their own procedures. So we still have the latitude of defining how that's done. Second, I'm concerned that if we had somebody come before us who, and I'm not going to use one of the languages that are normally around here, let's say they came before us and they speak Ukrainian. Now, yes, that's hard to obtain, but there are services that you can use that are, and I know in the hospital, they use video translation services. We are looking at those. We use them actually for some of our clients, as well as we're looking at those for folks who are deaf and hard of hearing, which if somebody came before us today who's deaf and hard of hearing, we are legally required to provide them with translation services. So I understand your perspective. I just am not certain that this is as much of a burden as what is being suggested. And I also don't see a floodgate of individuals coming before any of our bodies who may have a different language as their primary language. And oftentimes, whether or not it's the best practice, somebody coming before us may be coming with a relative who has a better grasp of English and that language that family speaks and does the translation for them, partly because they're comfortable with them. Now, if we're in a legal setting or a medical setting, that's not best practice. I'm not saying, I don't know that we should rely on that, but it's still a way to do it. And it's really giving that client, if you will, that resident, whomever, the right to choose how they want it done. So we could have plan A, and they say, no, my aunt over here, I'm comfortable with her translating for me, and that's okay. So that's all.
I think that the first time that we talked about this, I misinterpreted, and I thought that we had to provide all of our minutes in multiple languages. And I thought that would be a burden. I believe that. I also work in the medical setting. We do have to have, if someone comes in and they speak another language, if it's American Sign Language, we are mandated by law to have an interpreter. And if we do not have one, we have them for the basic languages. If we don't have one, we do have a... We do the video. So in our agenda, in our notice, it does say, Individuals requesting interpreter services for the hearing impaired must contact the town clerk's office, the phone number, at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. We probably should say, or, if you need anything else. But we're already doing that for our hard of hearing, hearing impaired people.
I don't think they're talking about hard of hearing.
Well,
I
hearing
think we already have
impaired,
something
hearing
here.
impaired.
Has a problem and only speaks Spanish.
In the hospital setting, we're not allowed to use family members. We have to have an official interpreter. Because it's, part of a medical record, it's a legal record. Here, if someone came with their son, their daughter, and they spoke a different language other than English, the family member could interpret for them.
Well, I think if the town chooses on their own to, if someone wants in 48 hours that would like to participate in Spanish or whatever language they would like, I think that should be up to us. I don't think the state should be mandating one more thing. It should be our choice.
So if someone, again, were to come before us, they're Spanish-speaking, they are not entitled to get the same level of service as I am, as an English speaker?
That's not what I said. I'm saying, once more, it's another state mandate that they're not willing to pay for. If we went along with this, if they wanted us to do that, and then we could send them the bill for the services, that's fine. But that's not what's happening here.
There's a lot of state mandates that we do.
And I don't agree with them.
But isn't it the right thing
It's costing
to
us a
do?
fortune.
Let's set aside the legislation. If I have somebody coming before me today, I know this much Spanish.
I don't know any.
If I have somebody coming before me today and they only speak Spanish, they don't have anybody around here that they're comfortable with, even though I don't think that's the best way to do it, why wouldn't we want to make sure that they understand what we're saying? Because again, it could become a legal issue for us if they misinterpret what we're describing to them and they go and take an action that is not how we described it, and then they incur a big bill for whatever, and they come back and say, well, this is how I understood what you told me I had to do, and you wouldn't give me anybody to help me understand it better, so town, now I'm going to sue you because you didn't provide me the right service.
I hear what you're saying, Mike, but the problem is that we would probably do that, but I don't feel we need a state mandate. That's the deal. That's how I feel.
Okay, and again, this statute is not mandating us anything but to put together a process.
It's mandated, unfunded mandate, requiring you upon request. I think we can do that on our own. If it so moves us that there's a problem, I don't think we need a mandate from the state that's unfunded.
All right, so I guess to move it along.
It's up to you.
Do I have a motion to send this? Yeah, I'm sorry, motion to approve. I'm getting tired now. Motion to approve.
As amended.
As amended.
Moved.
So moved? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 2. Against? 3. So it doesn't pass. Councilor Cook, update on results of adoption of the resolution for coastal buffer zone to allow for agriculture and minimize conflicting uses, discussion, and possible vote on a letter to support for House Bill 8244.
Yes, having become aware that this bill, after the resolution, which is kind of nice that it was paid attention to, put together an act related to fish and wildlife aquaculture by Representative Edwards, McGaw, Quattrefriend, and Abney. Abney's from Newport, Middletown, I believe. I looked it up because I wasn't familiar with him in person. It's in House corporations right now. I just wanted to update the council on where we are with that. I thought that's a good thing. And from what I understand, it might be amended. So I wanted a letter of support for their efforts, but I'm willing to wait for the amended version, if so. If
So
it's
would
so
you like
be.
to table
Yeah, we'll wait for the amended version. Thank you.
a motion to table?
I'll ask after the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mike?
So my only question is, do you have any idea what the possible amendments might be?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Do you have any idea what the possible amendments might be?
No, I just heard that there was just a couple of little tweaks they wanted to put in, so there might be an amended version. It's still in that, was it corporations?
Yes, yeah, and I asked that only because our next meeting is June 13th.
Oh, and there'll
If
be,
this moves forward, it's not likely we're going to have much time to do anything else on it. So it may make sense for, at least for them to get the sense of this body as to this.
support.
Yeah, that's my only thought.
Okay, if the council so wishes for us to go forward, even though there might be amendment.
But I have a motion on the floor, so,
Right, you get a motion, let's vote on the motion on the table first.
Okay.
so we have to do the motion on the table first. So the motion was to table this item.
Okay.
Unless you want to withdraw it. Do you want to withdraw it?
It was Jay, you want to withdraw that motion? To table it?
Yeah, for further discussion of this.
Okay. What is the next motion, Donna? You want to make a motion to send the letter of support?
The resolution.
Yeah, I
Resolution?
think Mike has a good take on that. And since they won't, I guess they'll be out on leave, that maybe we should support them in their efforts going forward.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
So who does that, Mike?
Who's going to,
We think you want a resolution draft?
yeah, there is a
There
resolution
is a
attached.
resolution, it just needs to be sent.
Oh, we just,
A letter?
that's the one we previously sent.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
The
Oh,
one that she sent that she believes prompted the bill.
oh, okay. Oh, so this would be a resolution in support of
The actual bill now.
the actual bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do that for the next meeting, is that okay?
It's just what do you, just need a letter of support from us, or
Yeah,
to
well,
them?
so,
We'll just do a resolution in support of the actual now that we have a bill number and a resolution, we'll
Okay.
just do the last, we'll just say we support.
All right.
but do you want to wait that long, though?
You want to just,
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
It's gonna be the
Okay.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
get it for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Town administrator, discussion and possible vote regarding recycle center to relocate recycle center in the industrial park from lots 728, 729, and 730 to lots 813, 814, 815, 817, and 818. Go.
So, since the other parcel where it was, we need to move it. So I need approval to move the recycling center to these new lots. Second part of that, but part has drafted an addendum to their contract to do the permitting and site design so that we can move forward and get this thing done.
So it's all these lots surrounding Transport Drive
Yep, and Transport Drive.
and Transport Drive?
And
No,
Transport Drive.
because 728, 729, 730 is part of a parcel we may be selling. Potential sale.
Potential sale.
So is this same relative space?
It's actually a little bit.
This,
This was actually the second choice, but the reason why we didn't didn't do it because it was more of a sellable lot because of where it was.
That's right, yeah.
But now, we have really no choice but to move it.
My question is, where's the $66,000 coming from?
What's 66?
Is this, there was,
Oh, we're gonna have to, that's So we have money earmarked for the recycling
Yeah,
center.
yeah, it'll come from there.
All right. I saw it somewhere.
Yeah,
I believe we have $600,000 earmarked for the recycling center.
Oh, okay,
already.
all right.
Yeah.
Because it was in my mind.
okay, so I need a, I need a motion to relocate the recycling center. That would be the first one, to lots 8, 13, 14, 15, 17, and 18. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made second, all in favor? And then the next motion would be to approve Power Engineering contract for the design and permitting for the transfer station. Motion? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay,
Chris, when can they start?
right away.
So there's not-
Yeah.
So I have permission to send that, because it's probably.
Well, I didn't put that in there, but yes, it's fine. Yeah. Town administrator discussion and possible vote to approve budget transfers.
So, acting chief Commander has provided these transfers that they need to get done for the end of the year. Most all these are predicated on the fact that fuel oil has gone through the roof, the gasoline, the diesel has gone through the roof. And so they're transferring funds to help augment some of these expenses.
All right, so I'm going to read them and we can do it as one motion.
You could just agree, H1 through, not 10? You don't have to read the 10. That's listed on the agenda.
Okay, I would rather do that. So I need a motion to approve H1 through 10 is listed on the agenda.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion been made second. Any further discussion?
So this is what, about $40,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
All those in favor? Town administrator update on known budget deficiencies and future resolution planning.
So I'm just gonna give you an update now. In June, you're gonna see some transfers that are not gonna be the normal type transfers. We have had a number of staff leave, and the unfunded liability account has taken a beating. Last known to me, that was before Sergeant Rossi departed. There's another police officer, fire department officer just left. The police officer left, fire department just had an individual leave. We're gonna have the planner leave. The girl from the police department from the record center, they all have pretty big payouts, except for the planner. So we're gonna be transferring monies from any available account that has payroll on it. That's whether it's DPW, whether it's fire, or wherever it comes from. It may even come out of insurance accounts. It's just, there's no way for me to make up these unfunded liability accounts. These people are all entitled to what they have as they're leaving this town. They have unpaid, vacation time that they're due. We have to pay it. It's not a benefit that's something different. It's not something that we're giving them that we shouldn't. That $100,000 went through very quick, and when I do that transfer, I will show you the number of hits that we've had against that throughout the year. It's been substantial.
Okay.
And some of them are pretty big amounts. So I just forewarning you, you're gonna see some transfers that you might not normally see. But we have to transfer the books to make sure and we're not in the red. It is what it is, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Town administrator discussion, possible vote to advertise the position of town planner administrative officer due to resignation. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Town administrator discussion, possible vote to advertise the position of fire chief due to future retirement. That's pretty self-explanatory.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Town administrator's got a lot here. Discussion and possible vote to purchase historic site markings using opera funds.
So
we discussed.
So we did discuss this at a prior meeting where you authorized some expenditures from the American Recovery monies. Sue Anderson actually came up to the microphone and made a plea for some historical markers. We asked her to go out and get some quotes for that. She's done that. But she would also like 2 additional, and I think she mentioned this that evening as well. I think it's the Osborne property, which is on Main Road, that she wanted a marker for and after. So I think that the request is reasonable for what she put together. So she's asking that we use American recovery monies to subsidize this expense.
Madam President, I would make a motion to approve the purchase of the historical markers using, for the historical areas, using $11,046, I guess it would be, right? Chris?
Excuse me?
It's 11,046?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because, no, I think I would authorize up to that amount because I'm not sure. So then that's 500 per sign, or
So-
500 for both.
So I'm going to make it simple math.
Okay.
Up to, but not exceeding $12,000
Okay.
for, from ARPA funds.
Okay.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I just wanted to say that when she first came, I thought they were little plaques, but
Oh, no, these are
when
good
she
size.
explained, they were really nice,
Yeah.
like you see in the,
There's one
yes,
down at,
yeah.
there's a few at Grinnell's.
Yeah.
Motion been made in second. All those in favor? Okay, we're getting to the end. Councilor Burke, discussion possible vote to work with Rep. J. Edwards on enabling legislation to authorize cities and towns to license short-term rentals.
So I would like this actually to be done in conjunction with the solicitor. But in speaking with Rep. Edwards about the work we're doing on short-term rentals, and in that work, we've discussed a lot, and the solicitor has highlighted for us that, by the cities and towns are only able to use zoning regulations to regulate these entities, which is, kind of like using a sledgehammer when you really need a smaller hammer, if even a hammer. But there's no statute that allows this, so enabling legislation would, very simply put, as it says here, authorize cities and towns to license short-term rentals.
Do I have any further discussion? Do I have a mo-
Unlikely to pass this year.
Unlikely to pass this year, but it's a starting point.
So is Mike, is that a motion? Want to make the
So moved.
Do I have a second? I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay.
something,
Town
send
clerk,
it to you.
update on financial town referendum. Nobody voted. How many don't?
81 total. There were
Out of
12
like-
mail ballots. There were 22 early voters at the town hall over the Thursday and Friday. I thank the solar committee for actually having a meeting and voting,
Yeah, we produced 3 of those votes.
as well as the Board of Canvassers. They had the meeting, so they voted as well. Election day, we had 47 voters
Those poor
at
people at the high school look
at the
so
high
bored.
school. Yes, so a total of 81 voters. The budget passed and all the resolutions passed.
Any
And-
close?
No, they were unanimous.
No.
They were
Not
really.
unanimous.
No, they weren't. They were close, though, wasn't
So the certified budget docket has been posted to the website, or will be posted to the website. I gave it to Dave. And the results have been posted in the town hall, on the inside and in the outside boards.
Thank you.
And if you were wondering how much it cost to do this affair, it came to roughly $6,500 between advertising,
That's why we have
food,
to look at this charter.
ballot costs, and the poll worker salaries, as well as my staff salaries.
$80 per vote.
Well, I want to thank your staff,
Yes,
because I
and
saw
the-
you
and the
all
poll
here
workers,
all
too.
day at Saturday. Yeah, the poll workers, and, okay.
Madam, would you like a motion to enter into executive session?
Yeah.
Except for E.
Except for you.
So I would like to make a motion that we enter into executive session for A, Town Administrator 42465A1, Personnel Job Performance for Planner Jennifer Siciliano, notice given. B, Town Administrator RIGL 42465A2, Collective Bargaining Update on IAFF Local 1703, Negotiations and Arbitration. C, Town Administrator RIGL 42465A2, Collective Bargaining Update on Teamsters Local 251 Negotiations. And D, Town Administrator RIGL 42465A5, discussion and possible vote on the disposition of publicly held property in the Tiverton Industrial Park.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Councilor Cook? No, this has to be roll call. Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Janick? Councilor